structure. If you guys can help me get rid of this table, push it to the back, and then get everyone kind of facing this way. Is that cool? And meanwhile, I'll just start talking. So, thanks for coming out. Man, I was expecting 4 people. But I guess that's the beauty of having people RSVP and pay. Yeah. And they're like, oh damn it, I gotta come out. I've already paid.
Oh, what is?
Yeah. So last. Hold on, I gotta ask. Is there anyone here who came last week? Okay, so I was talking to.
Yes, I did.
Oh, is that you? I'm so sorry. Okay. So Marla told me that 4 people came last week, and because I forgot to update or send out a reminder that we changed it this week. So yeah, I apologize. What we'll do is we'll have your next month entry free, like Sunday numbers. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we had very few RSVPs last week. I don't know why. We had like 4 people. You were one of them. And so we delayed it to this week so we could get more people coming. And so then one of my partners, Mig, he rewrote the description. I had called it, I don't know, stepping stone to cash flow or something. And so he rewrote this to say, you know, $10,000 cash flow. I'm like, dude, it sounds like a scam. And then he stuck the words, "This is not a scam," in the title. So we'll see if it's a scam or not. I'm not sure. Quite honestly, this is not going to be your typical presentation. Typical presentation is going to be like, hey, you know, I got all these slides up here. Pretty pictures, and we're going to go through them one by one. I do have some slides. It's more to just kind of guide the conversation. This is going to be a little more interactive. I'm going to ask someone, can someone pull out their phone and be our calculator? We're going to run through a bunch of numbers today. Does anyone want to? No one? Really? Okay. So, yeah, if you could just help me calculate some numbers as we kind of go through, because I got a lot of blanks. Actually, Kui, can you do me a favor? Can you move the whiteboard in there? The whiteboard's right there. We're gonna be doing calculations ourselves in real time as well. Yeah, so this is gonna be a working session. And actually, I've got a couple of scenarios I want to go through. And we have time at the end. If someone's so inclined and wants to share their current situation and see if we can analyze it in real time and see if we can figure out what their opportunity is to move forward, all while keeping in mind what the end goal might be. We've just put a stake in the ground and said $10,000 cash flow. That thing is different for everyone. We've called it 10,000 just because it's a nice, shiny, round number. That's why it sounds kind of scammy. But the reality is, and we talked about this before some of you guys came, real estate and real estate investing and acquiring properties and all this stuff, it's not about the real estate. And actually, it's not even about the cash flow. I know it sounds stupid given the session, the title of the session. It's really about how real estate helps you achieve your goals. And we'll talk about that a bunch of different times throughout the presentation, because what you're going to realize is that making money in real estate, this is going to sound stupid, it's not that hard. It's not that hard, right? And we're going to teach you, we're going to go through what the fundamentals are, what the important factors are. We can go through all of that. But what you're going to find is that there's a cost to trying to continue to acquire and build more and have more and more properties. And unless you understand some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, it's very, very easy to get wrapped up in just buy more. I need more doors, I need more properties. Without understanding what you're trying to ultimately achieve, you could just keep on doing that, and to what end? I mean, just for more money? I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of people, and what people want at the end of the day is for the real estate and for the net worth and for the cash flow to support a certain type of lifestyle. That's the important thing. And you have to understand what that is for you. It's different for everyone. And this all might sound very hokey, whatever. Like, you know, some financial advisor is going to ask you, hey, what are your dreams? You know, and I can tell you right now, I'm an engineer, right? I'm a Waterloo educated engineer. I don't like fluff. And so for me to say, oh yeah, what are your dreams and what do you want to achieve? I don't like. I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't think that this was important. Okay? So I just want to preface this whole thing with, you know, this whole cash flow, lots of cash flow, with keeping that in mind. So let's just get started. So who's Volition? So the Volition Investment Properties team, that's who's putting this on. We host this meetup on a monthly basis. On the advisory front, we have Ming. Ming's on the line. His wife's having a baby, so he's not here tonight. But Ming is the head of our advisory services. That's really...
Hi, everyone.
Oh, hey Ming.
Hey.
So that's really around education, like what we're learning tonight. It's around mentorship, coaching, consultations. It's really helping you understand what you want to achieve and helping you build a plan to get there within the context of real estate, right? And then we have realty services. So we are investor-focused realtors. We are the exclusive Toronto rate buyers group, investors for Toronto. We know what we're talking about. Hopefully, you know, if you so desire and you think that Toronto is the right market for you, we think we can help. Really, it's the execution of the strategy and the plan that we set out for with you, we co-create with you during the advisory phase. We have renovations. So design and renovations is handled by Alcina. She's the one having the baby right now. In fact, she's the one who actually did the renovation on this office, coincidentally. So she did design and she's the construction or project manager for all of our clients' construction. We just recently, like I said, we recently finished a high-end flip for a client. It was a $2 million exit. It was really, really super nice. So we have design renovation services to help you create rent-ready apartments, especially if what you're buying is an older housing style. And we have leasing and property management. So all the services under one umbrella to help you achieve your goals. The only thing we don't have is financing. And so actually, Sam and I are actually mortgage brokers, but we just don't practice. It's too complicated. You can only be an expert in one thing. We focus on being experts in real estate and being investor realtors. We partner, or we have good relationships with really, really good mortgage brokers. That's the business. Hey, Tim. Any questions?
Is there a way to turn off the music?
Oh, hey, Ron, can you cut the tunes? Thanks. Yep. So this is us. Oops. So one question we always get is, you guys only do investment in real estate? We specialize in investment in real estate. We think that we do very well at it, but we do normal stuff too. So helping you find a home, helping you list your house, your condo, and in fact, often these things go hand in hand as well. Sometimes you're selling your condo to upgrade to a better asset, for example. You know, all those sorts of things. But we help people find their primary residences, and like I was telling a couple of these people, we're just recently listed a $3 million luxury estate up in Richmond, Boston. Actually, I don't even know where to have this. This was something I aspired to do before. I wanted to write a book, and this was going to help me get there. Anyway, the idea here is that we have the breadth of knowledge and the experience to help you, no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter what you're doing within the context of residential real estate. So we are creating an A to Z guide on everything you need to know to invest in real estate. What we're talking about today is really around the fundamentals. We spend more time on the fundamentals than most. There's going to be lots and lots of people out there who are going to, at other meetups or other real estate groups or conferences or whatever. They're going to talk a lot about this stuff. How do I find this property? How do I buy it? How do I manage this thing? There's a plethora of information out there about that stuff. So we do that stuff. We do talk about it, but we don't focus on that too much because there's so much information out there about that already. There's a lot of where it's lacking is here. Understanding the fundamentals, understanding why real estate works as an asset class, and those types of things. That's what we focus on a lot, and that's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today, for example. Yeah, we do normal stuff too. So normally Ming does a market minute, but I'm going to do the market minute today. No, I'm not. This stuff's boring. Boring.
Oh my god, Megan, how do you feel about that?
No, it's actually...
I can hear you, Matt.
Oh, okay. No, it's actually, Ming only does this stuff, so I'm going to skip it. I'm going to get to the stuff we're going to talk about today. However, there's, if you're one of our clients and you bought a property through us or you've worked with us, and we have a mastermind WhatsApp chat for all of our clients. If you've worked with us, or if you're one of our clients and you're not on this, let us know and we'll add you. Okay? It's one of our value add for one of our clients. And some of these people, Chris is on it, Tim's on it, Florence is on it, Kevin's on it. Yeah? So, okay, so a few of you might have already seen this. I sent this out to the WhatsApp chat already.
Isn't this kind of the market minute? Continue.
A little bit, but he's talking about statistics, and I don't want to talk about statistics. Okay, commuting eats up house savings in many GTA communities. This is a Toronto Star article. CBC also had the same article. Anyone see this article? Raise your hand if you saw it. Saw it? Okay. The essence of this article is that it might be cheaper to buy a house out in Oshawa, Pickering, or Milton, or wherever, but the amount it costs to commute back into downtown Toronto, which pretty much will be where their job is, for most part, eats up a huge amount of their budget to the point where it almost matches what it costs to buy something in Toronto. So I looked at this and I was like, man, I would much rather have bought a house in Toronto and use that extra budget for commuting and use that to be paying to my mortgage bills and equity. So I'm not the only one thinking this. There's that and there's time, the time factor. It said that the average commute was, I don't know, a lot. 23 hours a month or something. So I looked at this and I said, I sure as hell wouldn't do that. And actually, a lot of your millennial renters are thinking the same thing. This is one of the reasons that we've had a focus on Toronto. We want to make Toronto make sense. It's certainly sure as hell cheaper elsewhere, but remember, it's not about buying cheap, it's about buying smart, right? So it's very easy to get caught in this trap of buying cheap. Buying cheap because you think you mitigate risk. It's lower risk because it's cheaper, right? Wrong. Wrong. Just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that it's less risky. Buying cheaper actually introduces a whole bunch of other risk. It's your job as an investor to understand what that risk is, and if you have a strategy and it's part of your business model to address that risk, mitigate that risk, and to add value to that process, then yes, great, fine. But don't buy because it's cheap, buy because it's smart. Okay, so here's Toronto, and then further you go, the darker it gets, which means that it costs more to keep. Okay, so then this was sent by someone. It's this cash flow lead.
This is what we actually use our. This is what we use our WhatsApp chat for.
Yeah. So Florence sent out this article which I took a look at, and this thing was gold. I was like, okay, so it's Reddit article. But it's my experience as a small-time landlord renting in Toronto. This guy is just talking about how he has 2 condos in Toronto, and 2 years ago, they rented out 2 years ago. 2 years later, which is now, he just rented it out again, $750 more a month in rent. rents are going through the roof in Toronto. The growth rate is like, I can't remember, 10.7%, something like that. 15 point some, double digits.
Stats.
It's a ridiculous amount of growth, and it's a great time to be a landlord if you're here in Toronto. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sucks because the Ontario LTV is heavily favored towards the tenant, but in terms of rent growth right now, it's a great time to be a tenant, landlord in Toronto. So this guy had 46 offers on his place. No, sorry, 47 offers. 46 offered more than first and last. One of them offered 4 years of rent in advance in a certified check. I did the quick math. I just said 2,500 times 12 months times 4 years, 125,000. Someone literally had a certified check ready to give. This guy's an idiot for not taking this. I would have taken this and bought another 2 properties. So anyway, and so his other unit, he rented for $620 more than last year. I was like, oh man, it's insane. It also makes me realize that I'm severely underpriced in my places because they've been there for a few years now. Yeah, so this article was brought to you by Cashflow Lee. So thank you.
Oh my god, please.
Okay. Alright, so scam alert. If someone tells you something like this, you should definitely be wary. So let's see if we can get there. Right? I worked out some numbers. We'll go through them together, and you can tell me, poke some holes in it. Have a critical eye. Right? Don't just take what I'm telling you as gospel. Maybe I'm full of shit, and I'm just feeding you a bunch of snake oil or something. Right? So make sure that you listen to anyone with a critical eye or critical ear, and see if you buy into what they're talking about. So I'm going to go through this, and what I'm going to challenge you to do as I go through this is tell me, hey, this is bullshit. This is snake oil. I don't believe this, and tell me why. This is an open conversation, and we can see if we can poke some holes in these business models. Right? So here, basic scenario. Let's say that you buy a $700,000 condo, right? This is like your most basic mom and pop. Is it better if I put this over there? Your most basic mom and pop scenario, right? Buy a condo, and this is how my parents also operate. My parents used to buy rental properties, and you buy a property and you wait 25, 30 years for it to pay off, right? Pay off the mortgage. That's what you're trying to do. And then, after that, you've got a nice little nest egg, right? Good, not bad, but the question is, how do we do better? Actually, the question is, what's the result? But we haven't even done this. We haven't even gone through the numbers yet. Okay, so who's my calculator? $700,000 condo. I'm going to work through a bunch of numbers. This is going to be, you might find this boring, because we're going to be working through a lot of numbers. But unless you understand these numbers, not these specific numbers, but the model. Unless you understand the model, you're not going to be able to truly understand your own real estate journey. And I want you to take this framework and apply it to your own situations. Then you'll be able to figure out, hey, is $10,000 of cash flow realistic in my scenario, or do I need to reset my expectations, or maybe I need to extend my time horizon. Right? So those are the types of things I want you to have think about as we go through. $700,000 condo down payment, how much? 20%. 140. Sorry, I'm not gonna do it very neatly. So mortgage 560. Okay, if you had a $700,000 condo, how much do you think it would rent for? That's actually the number. Oh really? Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be somewhere in that range. I just chose this number. So that actually is pretty good. Are you looking at my notes? Okay, so what would your Roughly speaking, property taxes and maintenance fee. 1,000?
That's fine.
Should be a little less than that.
Probably about 6.
Yeah, probably
Seven.
6.
6 or 7.
6.
So I estimated roughly about 750. I might be off by $50. Shouldn't be off for more than 50 to $100. So this could be, 750, 800. Okay, what would your mortgage be on 560? What would your monthly mortgage be? That's the model. Pretty good. How did you come to that?
Well, I just multiply it by 4.5, 4.25 is your average bank per 100,000, right?
Yeah. It's very good.
Unless you're going with Elan.
Unless you're going.
Then you need more.
So, quick rule of thumb. For every 100,000 that you borrow as part of your mortgage, it roughly, you can just use 450 now. At current interest rates, roughly 450. $450 a month for every $100,000 that you borrow. So a quick way to get to the actual mortgage. So I have 2,500. So that's good. You take this number and you figure out how many multiples of 100,000 is this. So if this is a $560,000 mortgage, you can roughly multiply this by 5.5, 5.6. Does that make sense? So that's how you quickly come to 2,500. But that's actually bang on. 2,500 is what I have. So what do you got here? Rents, expenses, mortgage. What's your cash flow?
450.
450? Negative 450. Negative 450. So just like a lot of people I was just talking to, they're like, how the hell do I get cash flow in Toronto? Right? And I'm not necessarily going to answer that question today. A whole bunch of other sessions we've talked about different business models, different strategies, different types of properties. I won't focus on that today, but I just want you to be aware that 98% of the condos that you'll buy, resale in Toronto today, will be cash flow negative by about -$200 to -$400, roughly speaking. Is that true? Ed, is that true? All the stuff that you sell, all cash flow negative. Which means you have to put 25% down, you have to live through the negative cash flow until rents rise, etc. Sorry? Short-term rents. Obviously, there's a look. Actually, here I'm gonna take it aside right now. So there's some people who messaged me on Meetup, and they're like, "Oh, $10,000 of cash flow, or your journey to $10,000 of cash flow." You're talking about like Airbnb, right? So I'm like, no, it's valid. There are definitely ways to tweak these business models to make them more effective to boost cash flow. Short-term rentals, renting it room by room, right? House hacking. There's if it's not already a brand new condo, you can do renovations that will boost your cash flow. Fully furnished executive rentals, right? There's so many different ways to do it. So if you're faced with a situation like this, think creatively. There are ways out of it. Okay?
Isn't that many buildings in downtown don't allow Airbnb?
This is important. Yes. So it's not a given that an Airbnb is going to solve your problem. There are buildings that are actually amending their condo declarations to actually state that there's no short-term rentals below 6 months, for example, to eliminate Airbnb. Toronto has its own Airbnb legislation that's coming down the pipe, right? So it's not a business model I would necessarily depend on over the long term. Okay. Okay. So here, I've got something. Do you know how to use exponentials? Like, does anyone know how to do this on their calculator? Okay. So let me ask you a question. Actually, I've already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it again. What was the average rent growth in Toronto last year? 16%. Yeah, I've actually heard differing things. I've heard 10.7%. I've heard 15.7%. So anyway, pretty good, right? Let's use a rental figure, a rent growth figure of 4%, right? Inflation is 2%. 3-4% is just above inflation. Just use 4%. Let's see how that works out. Grow your rent here by 4% for 30 years, compound. What do you get?
It's not really possible.
It's not possible?
Yeah, I mean, like, if there's someone living there, by law, you cannot increase more than 1.8%, right?
Okay, so we'll get to a few of these things. Just put a pin in that right now, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Is Bing trying to calculate something?
Oh, no.
This is the WhatsApp chat.
Oh yeah, it's a WhatsApp chat. Oh yeah.
So 324%.
Times this.
Oh,
So-
this is right.
Tell me. No, I'll tell you whether it's right.
Well, it's definitely not right. It's like, it says 9,000, but it's
It's right.
yeah.
9,000. So.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, it won't happen though.
So
Right, it's not realistic. That,
30 years
Do you,
growth?
okay, so let me ask you a question.
Pretty close.
So two bedroom rents 20 years ago. What were they? Do you know? I was a renter 20 years ago. I paid about $1,000 in rent for a 2-bedroom 20 years ago. Is that? I lived at City Place. I can tell you exactly where I lived. It's a 2-bedroom. Actually, it was 1 plus den, and I lived. My friend lived in the den, and I lived. He paid like $10.50. That was 20 years ago. I was still in university. 2,800 now. Roughly $1,000 back then. Is that back then for $1,000? They probably said, "There's no way in hell rents would ever get to 3,000." Right? So, is it possible? I don't have a crystal ball, but we're projecting out 30 years, right? So, is that possible? I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say this is how we project rents. Right?
What if you ran a projection at 1.8?
Sorry?
What if you ran it at 1.8? Just to, yeah,
What's 1.8?
the max.
Oh, growth. You could run it at 2%, and it'll be a lot less than this. So I'll get. Okay, so let me do a quick. Does everyone know what the rule of 70 is? So the rule of 70. So that means a doubling period of roughly 35 years. So that means this would turn into maybe over the course of 30-35 years, maybe $6,000. Is that fair? Does everyone follow the math I just did in my head? The rule of 70 states that interest rate times number of years equals 70. Right? So if you know one, you can solve for the other. So so Flo just said, hey, what if we used the rental guideline maximum of 1.8%? Ontario only lets you raise by 1.8%, right now, this year. It'll be different every year. 1.8%, what does that look like? I said, okay, well, 1.8% is roughly 2%. 2%, rule of 70 means 35. My doubling period is 35. So in 30 years, yeah, it could be roughly $6,000 or something like that. Anyway, okay, so then what are your expenses? So roughly speaking, what should your expenses grow at? 1 to 2%. Inflation. That's kind of the definition of inflation, right? The definition of inflation is it costs more next year than compared to today. I mean, we can get to monetary policy as to why and inflation of the money supply and all that stuff. But if you just take it at its face value, it costs more than it will today, at roughly 2%. The Canadian government trying to hold inflation in check at about 2%, right? 2.5%. So if you inflate expenses here by 2% for 30 years, what do you got? It becomes 13.85. So Okay, so now I'm 30 years down the road, this is my expenses. In reality, it'll probably be much higher because your condo
Yeah, I guess it's
fees will
increasing much higher than that.
will increase. But you're gonna see that it doesn't matter for the purposes of the exercise. Okay? This is your rent, this is your expenses. Now, what's your mortgage? Trick question. Nothing. So what's this? Roughly $7,700. Not bad. $7,700 in cash flow in 30 years. You know, have we hit 10,000? No, still pretty good. This is your baseline scenario, right? If I just buy something, hold it, and I grow my rents at whatever. Call it 2%, call it 4%, whatever you want. You can model this however you want, right? I model it at 4%. Expenses can grow at roughly inflation. Here's a good exercise actually. Grow rents at the same as inflation. See what happens. I'll give you just a quick. Anyway, does everyone get this? So basic condo, 700,000. We're talking 30 years down the road. Almost $8,000 in cash. 7,000 to 8,000, right? So here's an interesting scenario though. Okay, so let's say I make $1,000 in rent. And let's say, I don't know, expenses are $500 a month. And let's call this year 1. Year 2. Let's say rents grew at 2%, inflation, expenses grew at 2%. What's this? This is year 1. Year 2. What's my rents year 2? What's my expenses? Here's something interesting. Cash flow improves over time without you even doing anything. Just by the sheer nature of how real estate works, your expenses are going to be lower than your rent. Let's just say, even if you had a mortgage here of $500. So yeah, here. Let's redo this example. Let's say year 1. This is your mortgage. This is your expenses. Cash flow is 0. Year 2. Mortgage is still the same. 500. Okay, yeah. Forget this variable. Let's just say mortgage is the same. Because normally monthly is the same. And now I have $10 of cash flow. I didn't have cash flow before. I magically start getting cash flow. People don't realize that just holding real estate, not having to do anything necessarily, can improve your cash flow. I know, I'm just staring at a bunch of blank faces. It's probably not of interest to you. When I figured this out, I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know, this was, to me, this was mind-bending. Because I always thought, oh my god, if I have a negative cash flow property, like what am I going to do? Actually, cash flow improves over time, just by the sheer nature of how real estate works. Yeah.
I have a question. I rented this property, but what do we cater in the months if it is not rented? Because in the month which is not rented, I'll be paying like everything from my pocket.
That's right. That's why we invest in good markets where we never have vacancy.
How do you do that?
What's Toronto's vacancy rate?
1%. Less than that.
Sub 1%. If you have a vacancy, either you're in Toronto. Either you're an idiot or lazy.
So much judgment.
Did I just show you the Reddit? If you have a vacancy in Toronto, either you're lazy or an idiot. Like, quite honestly. There's no reason, like if you, other markets outside Toronto, I'm not going to comment on, but in Toronto, you should, in fact, I'm going to go on a little tangent. So let's talk about, what are the different reasons you can have vacancy? This is interesting. Eviction process. So what I'm hearing is non-payment of rent. So vacancy is a very catch-all term. What can fall under there? Non-payment of rent can be one.
Property damage.
property damage,
Yeah,
better categorized as going through renovations. Going through renovations is another one. Actually having vacancy is another, right? Or like vacancy, like unintended vacancy, or even intended vacancy. So for example, if you're going to be selling the property and you didn't want to sell it with the tenant in there, so that's intended vacancy. So there are different reasons you can have vacancy. So I'm being very overarching when I say you should never have vacancy. There are reasons that you might have vacancy, especially renovations, right? However, to answer your question, we don't worry too much about vacancy because we're buying in markets that have extremely low vacancy rates, like near zero. Fair enough? Coming back to Jack's question, what do we do? 1.8%. It's all I can raise. Well, it's all I can raise rents, right? Right?
If your tenant,
How do you fit your tenant? Personal needs.
short term,
And then it's vacancy then.
and you can demand for the new tenant comes in, he doesn't know what the rent was before.
Yeah.
You can just do whatever you want.
So, to be fair, when you're talking about personal use and 12, right, owner occupied use of the property, we used to do those. It's very hard to do those nowadays. The new legislation, the 16-point plan with Catherine Wynne and all the rest, makes it harder because now you have to pay out the tenant, first of all, and now the tenant has recourse coming back to you to sue for damages and all this other stuff. It's harder to do, right? In fact, I know some investors, what they're doing is they're purchasing a property, they're doing a major renovation on it. Even if the renovation only takes 6 months, they just leave it vacant for 5. Right? So that's another reason for vacancy if that was your business model. So it's just to avoid this whole issue. Then coming back to how do you raise rents then? 1.8%. How do you get around this? Renovation. Renovation's a tough one as well. Capital improvements is not always the answer, but it is an option.
The tenants just naturally leave after a few years.
Sorry?
Tenants usually naturally leave after a few years.
That's our business model right there, right? So who in Toronto? I'm in Toronto. I'm not talking about these other regions. I'm in Toronto, and I have property in the areas that we always talk about, that we've talked about for many years now. This is, downtown Toronto. Who's my tenant profile? Professional millennials working where? Where specifically Where specifically in Toronto? Downtown. Working for what kind of companies? Corporate, big tower, shiny glass tower type companies. What kind of education?
University.
University educated. Making how much?
60, 100 plus.
A couple years out of school, you typically see 60 to 80K. Right? That's my tenant profile. You might have someone different. That's my tenant profile. That tenant is not a lifer. I also have properties in Hamilton. Those guys are lifers. I'm having lots of issues. In Toronto, that's one of the reasons we invest in Toronto, because that person, after a couple of years, does what?
They probably want to buy.
They probably want to buy. Or, they're renting a 1-bedroom and boy meets girl and they have babies and they can't live in a 1-bedroom anymore. They're upgraded, right? They're moving to a bigger place, right? No matter what that circumstance might be, it typically means they're moving after 24 months. 18 to 24 months is typically what we see, right?
Matt, you also mentioned that rent control is being lifted today by the Toronto government.
Yeah, so you want to hear that? Being lifted? It's basically, okay, Catherine Wynne, previous to Catherine Wynne, they said that buildings that were built after, I think, November 1991 were not subject to rent controls, meaning all these new condos and stuff like that.
That's gone.
And then Catherine Wynne came along, and it was gone. The Ford government, I can't keep on saying this, but I'm applauding the Ford government's decision.
We're filming this.
I know. They're most likely rolling that back. We don't know the details of that, but they announced it today.
Yeah.
Like an earlier year?
They're rolling it back to probably prior to what Catherine Wynne had instituted. So meaning that probably buildings after 1991 again, maybe okay. I don't know the details of that. Maybe they say new condo buildings built as of today. I don't know. Right? So
Yeah, the details haven't been released yet. I read through the plan for the people, which is the release from the Ford government. It's only about 2 or 3 lines in there. So directly related to housing. One, they said that they're going to lift rent control on new buildings. That doesn't really say very much, just that one line. And then the other is the stimulation package that Wynn had announced for development. They'll be canceling that. So that's their plan when it comes to that's what I think.
I think that was the cash injection that they were gonna inject in order to incentivize more rental units. Anyway, okay, coming back to this scenario. So roughly $7,000 or $8,000 of cash flow in 30 years. So you're going to start seeing that this whole concept of $10,000 of cash flow or lots and lots of cash flow. It's not that hard to get. It's not that hard to achieve. However, the key question is, I don't know about you, I'm not waiting 30 years for this to happen, right? The question is, how do we do this faster? So how do we do better than this? So the scenario, I'm going to outline a couple scenarios today, and we're going to try to see if we can do this in maybe 12 years. See if that's possible. Okay? 12 years better than 30?
Yeah.
I know. Half of us are probably dead in 30 years.
Speak for yourself.
Maybe this will be okay for our kids.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. Like, I want to be done this whole thing a lot faster than that. So that's your key question. It's not, okay, how much cash flow can I get? Yeah, that's part of it. Where you're going to find, do I have this? Okay, I'm going to come back to this. Oh, shit. These are the 3 important questions you need to ask yourself. Where are you at now? Where do you want to go? And when do you want to be there? So this whole idea, with $10,000 of cash flow would be great. Let's call that where you want to go. That's part of your life goals. 10,000 is enough. Okay, great. But what you're going to find is that that's only part of the equation. When do you want to be there? I hope I was demonstrating to you that just sheerly over time, you can get there. Pretty much anyone in this room can achieve $10,000 cash flow given enough time. Is that fair? Have I sufficiently demonstrated that that's possible? Now the question is, how do you do this in a shorter period of time, in a more defined period of time, not 30 years, maybe in 10, 15, or 5, or whatever, right? This is the main question. When? Because if you give me enough time, I can help you achieve any goal, right? And the other key question is, where are you at? So if you're starting with absolutely nothing, it's a bit harder. You need to figure out solutions for that, right? Maybe it means you need to join a joint venture for your first property, or maybe it means you need to save more, or maybe it means you need to get a higher paying job. I don't know. You need to figure out a better starting point in some way, shape, or form, right? And there's lots of people who are in this boat. They're like, I don't have enough money to get started. And actually, I have a scenario at the very end I'm going to get to talking about I don't have very much money. But there are solutions. If you are intense and you have a clear goal in mind, you can achieve this, right? So I'm gonna step back really quickly. What we're doing today is really comes back to how I think Elon Musk learns faster and better than everyone else. He's smarter than all of us, so I want to figure out how he thinks. How is it that he learns? This is what he said. He deconstructs knowledge into fundamental principles. He says it's important to view knowledge as a sort of semantic tree. Make sure you understand the fundamental principles, i.e. the trunk of the branches, before you get into the leaves and the details, or there's nothing for them to hang on to. Okay? So here, I'm going to rewind. Okay, so let's look at, what was that, one of those early slides that I showed? This one right here. What do most people teach you? Most people teach you, oh, how do I go find a property? How do I go buy a property? How do I manage this thing, or whatever? What most people are lacking is the fundamentals. Understanding the fundamentals first, and then naturally all the rest comes. So that's what I'm hoping I'm conveying today. I want you to understand these fundamentals. Like, we've stripped back numbers to, like, you know, first principles. I'm asking you, how much is rent? How much is mortgage? How much is your expenses? And then we're projecting this out 30 years. In fact, another way to look at your fundamentals is like this. So I've shown this slide 1,000 times. I've sat down with clients 1,000 times and delivered this same slide. And I want you to understand what this is. So let's say that you buy a property for $500,000. Rule of 70. So if I am, in 25 years, it's worth not 500,000 but $1 million. What's your interest? What's your growth rate? Rule of 70, 25 years, solve for the third variable. It's roughly 3%. A little under 3%, 2.89%. Right? So we're talking about a growth rate that's actually just a smidge above inflation. Okay? So the question is, you know, do you think that property value can double in 25 years? I don't know. What do you think Toronto's growth rate has been?
6%. 5.5. Average.
Canadian average over the past 32 years has been 5.4%. Canadian average. Toronto is about 10%.
Over the past 30 years.
Over, I modeled Toronto over the past 20 years. So it's been about a 10%
Giving
growth.
up the 80s, the late 80s.
If you model it
from 98.
if you want to model it from 90 or 89,
89.
drop. Okay, so I don't have this chart here. I do have this chart though. 32 years of real estate growth at 5.2%, 5.4% actually includes the late 80s and it includes the 2008. Where it stops actually is 2016. I haven't updated my numbers since 2016. But it includes 2 real estate downturns and it's still a 5.4% growth. So, question is, do you think that property value can double in 25 years?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say it does. $500,000 mortgage, $500,000 property, $400,000 mortgage, and you pay down your mortgage for 25 years, property goes up, here's your equity. Start off with $100,000 as your down payment. Over the course of 10 years, it's going to almost $400,000. Over the course of 20 years, it's going to almost $800,000. This is fundamentally how real estate works, right? Right? Well, what if? So I'm an engineer. I like to think like an engineer sometimes. And I want to see, you know, what's a worst case scenario or a bad case scenario. Let's say it's worth the same over the course of 25 years. It doesn't go up a dime. Over the course of 10 years, just through equity pay down or mortgage pay down, I built 100,000 into 225,000 over the course of 20 years, 400,000 over the course of 25 years, it's 400,000. I can tell you this alone is roughly a 7 to 8% return by itself. Zero appreciation, zero cash flow. I'm not even talking about cash flow. And then here's the last scenario. This is doomsday scenario. In 25 years, it's worth 25% less. $500,000 property is worth $375 in 25 years. Sounds catastrophic. You still made money. You still build more equity. You still increased your net worth by holding for the long term. So that's the importance of holding for the long term. What allows you to hold over the long term? What is the single thing that allows you to hold it over long term?
Renters.
As a consequence of renters, it's the rent that they pay and the cash flow. Cash flow. Cash flow, that's the role of cash flow now. Quite honestly, I don't care about cash flow now. Yeah, I've got some cash flow now, or I've got a portfolio, or so if someone tells me that they have 5 or 10 or 15, $20,000 in cash flow now, I'm like, great. I'm not impressed. It means nothing to me. It typically means that they don't understand how to use leverage to increase their net worth and how to grow the portfolio faster. That's all it means to me, usually. Unless they're in the end game and they've divested all the properties and it's all pure cash flow and that was their goal from the get-go, then that's great. But if you have $10,000 of cash flow now and you're still in the acquisition phase, you're doing something wrong because you're not growing. You're not putting your capital to highest and best use. Cool? Here, I want to show you something really, really quick. And this is fundamentally the concept I want to demonstrate today, because this is kind of going to be kind of the meat and potatoes. Really quickly, I wrote 5% growth. In 4 years, you should have built enough equity in your property through, according to 5% growth, through appreciation and through mortgage paydown that you can refinance, pull in enough equity to go buy another property. Which means every 4 years, in theory, every 4 years you should be able to double your portfolio from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. In theory. What's the biggest roadblock to this happening? More generally speaking, just mortgages. Financing wall, call it DCR, call it debt servicing, call it whatever you want. Too many mortgages, too many, right? This may not be a reality, but I just want to demonstrate a framework to you. Conceptually, this is how you want to be thinking, because there are ways around this as well, right? Joint ventures, moving into different asset classes, moving up into larger multifamily, commercial financing, for example. There are ways around this, but conceptually, I want you to understand that this is how you grow your portfolio. This is how I've grown the portfolio. This is how Ming's grown his. This is how Sam's grown his. Right? We've all done this. This is sort of the meat and potatoes. Okay, so great. I've grown my portfolio 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8 over the course of 12 years. Let's just say, okay, I'm good. I'm going to wait. Then you have the hold phase from year 12 to year 18. Let's just say you hold. What happens during the time that you hold? What's happening to property values?
Property is getting value.
Property values probably going up,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't go up at a, mind you, it doesn't go up at a straight line as much as we've been modeling it. It doesn't do this. It does this, right? The key is to be able to hold through these downturns, right? Hold for the long term. Don't be forced to divest into one of those. So over the long term, yeah, property values probably going up. So, yeah, it is a good question. What happens to rents in downturns? So last year, let's use Toronto. Let's use a real life example. So what happened in May 2017? What happened to the real estate market in May 2017?
Prices went down.
Just went, right? Toronto. How much?
That's where 20, 30%, something.
Yeah, doing air.
Let's talk about, I'll split it into two. The 416 and 905.
Out of 5, 30%.
Any other guesses?
20?
Any other guesses?
416, not really that much.
No.
That was not
I think so. Went up.
So
Yes.
May, I think we can all generally agree May was roughly the real estate downturn. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay, it was all over the headlines. Downtown dropped how much? Over the course of how long? It dropped between 7 and 10% over the course of about 6 months. 5 months. Till about September, May till September. It dropped about 7 to 10%, depending on the area. I'm talking about CO1, CO2, EO1, EO3, W1, WO2, which constitutes the downtown core, right? 7 to 10%. Willowdale, Richmond Hill, Aurora, Markham, Vaughan, 18 to 23% decline. Now, through the recovery phase, where is downtown core?
Higher this year.
When we hit May of 2018, a year later, we were back to peak pricing. We were, how much it was down was 0. We were back to par. Uptown, where were we?
Still low. I mean, Aurora is still
Still
low.
going down 15, still down 15%.
Based not on the area, but on the property type.
I pulled, to show this, I showed this for different asset classes. What I'm talking about is single detached.
Like houses are not.
So even condos are priced out.
So this was single detached houses. I also have a separate graph for condos.
Are you sure
I didn't
that's...
show statistics today because that's what the main usually
I was
does.
gonna say, maybe that boring slide isn't so boring.
Yeah.
There is that slide.
Fine, I should have updated it. I didn't realize we were going to get into this conversation. Anyway.
I'm defending you.
Okay, now I forgot what I was talking about. Where were we?
Did you show that slide though? It is there.
Price range.
No, but I didn't.
No, the one where you stamped. Yeah.
Okay, here. Boring. Yeah. Boring. Okay. CO1, CO2, WO1, WO2, EO1, EO3. Those are all areas. And then here you can see basically Toronto. You can see all these lines. These lines are basically back to where, roughly speaking, where we were last year. Uptown, drop, stayed down 15%. Those are kind of the, and then condos been doing well. Okay, here's a question. Oh, hold on, I remember the question was, what happens to rents? Actually, let's talk about condos since it's up right now. Why were condos doing well?
Mortgage
Too high?
rules,
They're in the right
it's
place.
just
Right place.
easier to buy condos than houses.
Right. Right? So the way Ming describes this, I'm going to paraphrase, is that you have two major factors that are squeezing condos. Right? So you have all the people who are going to buy a single detached house for themselves at 800,000 million. They lose 22 to 23% of the mortgage qualification as of January 1st. And now they're forced to buy cheaper properties. At the same time, you have basically you have tons and tons of demand from all these millennials and younger people that are driving cheaper prices, cheaper condos up. So you have like $400,000 people, all those get bought up, they buy $450. All those get bought up, they buy $500. At the same time, you have all the people who are going to buy a house, or semi-detached, or a townhouse, now buying condos at the $750 range because they can't buy their $800,000 to $900,000 home. So condos have been doing very, very well for these reasons. Yeah? Rents. Let's come back to rents. So real estate went down. That was the question. Your question.
Yeah.
Real estate was going down. What was happening to rents?
Going up.
So this is anecdotal, obviously. I don't have exact figures, but generally speaking, and this is not unexpected, actually. According to real estate theory, people who now cannot afford to buy their own place, what do? They rent. Yes. What?
If they cannot afford to rent, it's just like an economic crash, they don't have a job.
Okay, so why are we buying in places that have an economic future, not an economic past? Economic growth. It's like that arrow. Does everyone know the arrow? Yeah. I'm getting so sidetracked. Okay, I'm not going to draw it, I'm just going to talk about it. Economic growth leads to job growth. Job growth leads to, not quite yet, we'll get there, population growth. Population growth means people move into a place, and what do they do for the first 12 to 24 months?
Rent.
They rent. So vacancy rates, rental demand up, vacancy rates down. What happens to rental income? rent prices.
No.
And when the cost of renting approaches the cost of ownership, what do people do?
Fine.
They buy. So that's a 18 to 24 month cycle, right? This is real estate theory. I'm not just making this up. If you want to read about this, there's a book. It's called The Secrets of the Canadian Real Estate Cycle by Don Cameron. Okay? Go read it if you.
There's actually a pretty good article too, I think this year, Ryerson, from the study, about millennials and also immigration to Toronto.
Oh, let's talk about immigration.
That article focuses just more on the millennials moving out, so migration into new cities.
Yep.
We're in a serious housing shortage right now, as most of you guys know, and rental is probably not going to suffer anytime soon.
You also have the older folks downsizing.
Yes.
You got a whole baby boomer that have accepted that they're going to live in a condo now, where before they would never even.
I'm still hearing that they're not fully accepting it.
Yeah, my friends are,
Yeah.
but there are a lot more.
I just had a deal where like they sold their house and they bought a condo. Like
It is happening.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like
Especially if those people want to be able to pass on something to their kids, to give their kids a leg up,
yeah.
right? So so there's lots of stuff happening, and where it's all pointing is invest in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like I have no other way to sugarcoat this, and I'm not saying other places aren't good. I've studied a lot of different markets. Toronto just has the right blend of stuff. Current population of Toronto, any ideas? GTA. 6.7.
Wow.
What are they projecting in the next, by 2040, 22 years?
Another
3 million, an extra 3 million people moving in, 9.7, 9.75. That's insane. Like, I don't know if you grasp what this means, right? 3 million people more. Like, can you imagine the average person's commute is already like an hour and whatever. Like, we're into a serious housing shortage right now. 300,000 immigrants come to Canada every year. Just under half come to Toronto every year. Call it 150,000, it might be 140 or something. So project, let's say 150,000 over the course of 20 years. 3 million, that's your 3 million people right there. That's not even including interprovincial migration and the fact that we're turning into a service-based economy. All the service-based jobs are in Toronto, tech, hospitality, finance, healthcare, everything. Everything's pointing here. Right? So anyway, I've gone way off track. Less. So these are the fundamentals I want you to understand, right? Like, I haven't even talked about buying a property. Like, I haven't even talked about whether a condo or a house or, right? These are the fundamentals. So anyway, here's something cool. So coming back here, housing prices continue to go up, rents continue to go up, your mortgage continues to get paid down. You hit a magic number, call it 50% loan to value, for your entire portfolio. Why? Why 50%? It is half. Half of what?
You can sell half and take off
Boom!
half.
Very smart. Very smart. I love that. Sell off half, pay off the mortgage the other half. This is how you game the system. This is how you beat the, hey, I'm going to buy one place, wait 30 years. Whether this is 18 years, I don't know. 18 years, 12 years, I think I'm modeling it in another scenario like 12 years. The point is, you'll end up with more properties, free and clear, in a shorter period of time than just buying your single, buy one place, wait 30 years. Does that communicate?
Yeah.
That make sense? So this is how you get there in a more efficient way. Like I don't know about you. I want to be a sophisticated investor because I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. Buy a place, sit down for 25 years, 30 years. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in operating at this level. I want to operate at this level. Okay? Anyway, so yeah, this is the idea. Portfolio value, no mortgage, lots of rent, cash flow. That's kind of the essence. So, hey, for the people who registered for the session last week, you might have saw this picture. Did you see this at all? Yeah? I originally had this conception of modeling like this prototypical couple called Tommy and Gina from, really? No? No?
You laughed. You got
Got-
one
got one
supporter
laugh?
in the room.
Okay, this is Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi has an awesome song called "Living on a Prayer," and he's talking about Tommy and Gina, who they work on the docks, they work in the diner all day. They come from the school of hard knocks, right? I want to show how average folk who can't see any way forward, how they might be able to also achieve their goals within the context of real estate. I only got 4 RSVPs for this session when I did this description, so that's why Ming had to rewrite it and say $10,000 in cash flow. So, anyway, that's how we go. I already talked about the 3 most important questions, so let's just take Tommy and Gina as an example. Tommy's got a $650,000 condo, Gina's got a $700,000 condo, they got married, they rented both condos, let's say they both make $100,000. They've got some cash, stocks, some RSPs, pretty typical millennial type couple, right? Let's say. Where do you want to go? So this is what I hear a lot. I want the flexibility to work whenever I want to. I want contract type work. I want to retire early. I want to do something else. I want to have a education fund for my kids. I want to be able to buy a nice place for my parents, or whatever. Think form. What is form? Have you ever heard of this acronym? There are generally 4 things that are important to people. F, family. O, occupation. R, recreation. M, money. Pretty much anything that you can think of, if you were to chat with someone, and this, I'm taking this back to my joint venture days, and when I used to raise capital, and I used to be looking for partners, and I would want people to invest with me. It always came back to these 4 things. Anyway, the reason I mentioned this today for you, think about these 4 things in your own context. What's important to you? Typically, you'll fall into these 4 categories. The only thing here that might kind of fall outside here is like philanthropy, but loop that under recreation. Right? Think about what that is. So for Tommy and Gina, they go, oh, okay, I'm modest, $5,000 a month, whatever. Okay, cool. Let's see if we can make that happen. When do you want to be there? I don't know. You should know. You need to know. And we've just talked about why it's important to time down this and to understand what your time frame is for achieving this. I also I don't know what's realistic. I don't want to give you too high of a number. I don't want to say 10,000 because that might be completely unrealistic. I don't care. If that's what you have designated as what you need in order to support the lifestyle that you're looking for, write that down, because that's what our goal is going to be. At the end of the day, where do you want to go? You figure out your life goals. Your life goals need to be supported by your financial goals, and your financial goals can be supported by your real estate goals. So if I figure out what I want, I can figure out what number I need to support that from a cash flow perspective. And then I can also help you figure out what your real estate goal is in support of that financial goal. So that's working backward. Working forward, where are you at now? What's your starting point? How much capital do you have? Properties? Yeah.
I have a question on your timeline. If you're starting out on one condominium, you're suggesting that every 4 years you remortgage and buy a second one.
Potentially.
Appreciation. So now you've got 2, and it's 4 years, and then it's 8 years. But your timeline that you're showing is really quite long for a 12-year split with your value.
Let's take a look. See if it's
You
achievable.
need multiple properties, lots of properties.
Maybe
But you can't get them if you're just starting with one property.
over time.
12 years.
We can talk about it. Right? We can see.
I don't see how.
So I'm not sure. Let's work through. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. Right? So that's why I want you to understand where you're at, where you want to go, and how long you have to get there. I said 12 years. In my previous, in those arrows and stuff, I had 18 years. Like it differs depending on your assumptions and depending on where you want to go and how long, where your starting point is. You have 3, basically this is a constraining problem. Given 3 variables, where you're at, where you want to go, and how long it's going to take to get there. If you give me 2, you can solve. I can help you solve for the 3rd. That's essentially what it comes down to. If you tell me where you're at right now and where you want to go, I can generally say how long it will take to get there, in theory. I don't know if you can qualify for the mortgage. Those are the things I can't answer. I also can answer the fact that your place is going to definitely be worth more next year than this year. I can't answer that. But what I can do is I can build a framework based on some assumptions, right? So if you give me, okay, I have 10 years before I want to retire. That's a hard stop. And this is how much money I'm starting out with. Okay, well, let's figure out what you might be able to achieve in those 10 years then, in terms of your goal. Right? I typically ask clients to figure out what their goal is and keep that constant, and only if we can't vary the other two in order to solve for that end goal, only then we might need to start thinking about modifying their goal. Does that make sense? Maybe all you need is more time, or maybe you need a little more of a step up in terms of your starting point. Okay, so Tommy and Gina, let's say they got a starting point here, $700,000 condo and sorry, $650,000 condo, $700,000 condo. Let's just write that. 650, 700. So I made some assumptions that actually don't matter. Say that Tommy bought it for $500 and it's worth $650, and Gina bought it for $400 and it's worth $700 today. Now, if they bought it 5 years ago, 7 years ago, those are pretty simple numbers. 5 years ago and 8 years ago, according to a 7% appreciation, because condos have appreciated about 7% over the past 10 years, a little more than 10 years. 7% growth year over year. Yeah.
Where are they living?
So there's certain assumptions I don't. Just for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to say there's no mistakes. That is part of the exercise. I wanted to simplify it. So Tommy and Gina hook up, they get married. Now they combine their assets. So let's say this condo, how much is it renting for? $650. Chris, how much is your condo renting for? The condo you sold, how much is it worth today?
2,600.
How much is it worth? You just told me last week.
Oh, right.
That's
Oh, rent, sorry. Probably like 26.
26. I use 26. And I already said this was probably 28. Okay. And then I ran all the numbers. I just want to show you a quick model. I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to actually go through this with you or not. This is the model I use. I built this, so it's not pretty. But can everyone see?
No.
No? Okay, I'm going to read it to you then. Basically, the first tab says where are you currently? Okay. The next one is basically where you want to go, and then step 3. This is the plan to get you there. Right? So this is a model that we use with our clients to actually help them figure out how to get to their targets. Okay. So I was thinking about showing it to you, but I think it's going to be boring. So I'm just going to give you some numbers then instead. Okay, so let's assume that assume this has a mortgage of 360 right now, and this has a mortgage of 280. Okay? And let's say it's cash flowing right now at 325 a month, and this is cash flowing 900 a month. Why are these cash flowing so well?
Because they bought a while back.
They were bought a while back, meaning
They were cheaper.
they were cheaper, meaning mortgage is lower.
Yeah.
Mortgage is lower. So I've got a condo that's worth $650 and a mortgage of $360. I have a condo worth $700 and a mortgage of $280. These properties are not being put to highest and best. Sorry, capital is not being put to highest and best use yet. So this is another reason. So this is the exact reason, actually, why I'm not impressed by cash flow. I look at this and I go, your capital is being completely underutilized. analyzed. Great, we've got cash flow. This doesn't impress me. This just means that you don't understand how to use leverage to increase your net worth and to help you reach your goals faster. Right? So, how do you analyze these properties then? What do you do? What's your next step?
Take equity out of them and buy another one?
How much equity? Bring it back to how much?
Zero cash flow.
Or even further? What LTV?
80%.
80%.
Okay, so what's 80% of this? Where's my calculator?
5, 10.
Something like that. What's your equity takeout then?
Yeah,
How much?
180. 150.
No, what's your equity takeout?
150.
I have my equity takeout here as 160.
Yeah.
Is that right? Equity takeout of 160,000. Does everyone know what I just did there? Raise your hand if you're confused. Don't be shy. Okay? This is the value of the property, correct? What's 80% of this number? Please, someone pull your calculator out.
520.
520? 520?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was like, oh shit, they screwed up. Okay, 560, that's 650. What's your mortgage now, currently today? 360. What's the potential new mortgage I could go up to? 520. What's the difference between 520 and 360? 160. 160 is my equity takeout. Basically, I take out a new mortgage, I pay out my old mortgage, and the difference is cash in my pocket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? However, in doing so great, I've got all this cash. In doing so, I know you're not going to have the numbers for this, so I'm just going to give it to you. It turns it into a negative $400 monthly cash flow, which is pretty typical, right? Just like if I bought the condo today, it would be cash flow negative $400. That's essentially the same thing. It's as if I was buying a condo at 20% down. Fair? So
I mean, I calculated like your model is 12 houses, right? That cash flow, not even realistic for Toronto that I would see. Like there would be minus 700 on a 12 properties. There would be minus 8K every single month that you need to pay out of your own pocket. How do you deal with that?
how do you deal with that? Can we just talk about this?
You sold half and paid off the other half.
So,
before that, you need to hold it for 4 years, right?
so how many strategies did we just throw out there to be able to help deal with some of this stuff? Furnished rentals, short-term rentals, Airbnb, right? House hacking.
Maybe 400 is the accurate.
This?
Yeah. I was saying it's not negative 700.
This is
question.
Yeah. Oh, how
it's
do you-
a fair question,
Right.
but there are solutions as well, right? So one of the ones that we look at, for example, it could be pre-construction condos. Pre-construction condos basically are buying today at today's prices while rents continue to grow. By the time it closes, the potential to actually be cash flow neutral, cash flow positive. It's a little longer of a strategy, obviously.
Rates are also growing right now pretty rapidly, right?
Rents,
Rates.
interest rates,
Yes.
model it. I actually do model it. I have interest rates at 5% at the end. Model it. You're a smart guy. You can figure it out, right? So were there other potential strategies?
Reamortize.
You can re-amortize your mortgages out if you're 5 years in, 10 years in, right? You don't need to keep it at a 25-year or 20-year AM. You can re-amortize it back up to 30 years. It's a great strategy.
So, as you said before, that the cash flow, you'll eventually get cash flow neutral just by holding the property, right?
Over time, it's hard to.
What is that time?
It's a fair question.
When did it
How do you absorb this for the long term, and as you scale your portfolio, right? So you just need to think about you can't keep on doing this exact same thing necessarily. So it's a fair point, but the solutions may be maybe I don't buy the exact same type of asset. Maybe I put 25% down. larger down payments, right? Or maybe I switch asset classes from condos, which are cash flow negative, to multifamily, small multifamily. What's your cash flow on the triplex?
Let's forget.
You're
It's
done.
positive.
Chris, what's your cash flow on your fourplex? Oh, it's not
You're
exactly.
ruining the math.
You guys are killing me.
We're set up. Why do you do
It's
that?
positive cash flow, okay?
Like-
So basically the idea is, density under one roof, multifamily, triplexes. Yeah, they're more expensive, but they actually have a better potential of cash flowing.
I do remember it's like 1,000 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are cash flow. There are solutions. Yeah.
So, going to the first example that we saw with you just buy, hold for 25 years, to I think what you were trying to ask, how many years with the 5% growth and all that stuff does that hit zero neutral?
I'm not sure. I didn't model that. I don't know what that is.
You need to take that into account with your, like, even over 30 years, right? That you still have to pay 20% down for $50,000 or whatever, and then you need to pay $500 a month for
Yes.
15 years. When by the time that's neutral, and then you pay your.
That's part of the reason that resale condos right now are a difficult investment in Toronto. Typical resale condo. This is basically what it looks like, right? We know this. Rents have been rising, yeah, but prices have also been rising. It's cash flow negative.
Even on pre-con now, you're still going to be cash flow negative.
However, okay, well, I think I have the scenario. Maybe I'll mock later on. But we'll talk about it now since you're going to bring it up now. So my rent was, take one of these things, apply the 4% growth year over year. Even though you bought it at today's prices. In 5 years, how it nets out is you have a good chance of cash flow, even at higher interest rates in 5 years.
You're not buying pre-con at today's prices. The future value.
Future value by about 5 to 7%.
$1,500 a square foot.
Yeah, don't buy that much.
Don't buy that. You get 1,000.
So Chris, how much a square foot? Chris, what did you buy?
Artworks.
How much a square foot?
850.
And where is it? So is it downtown core? No, not exactly. But are there options? Yes, there are options. Fair
But
enough.
to my point, is like that's like speculative future value of the property. Like that's not current prices.
It's about, so we've estimated, we've done analysis, it's about anywhere from typically 5 to 7% future value. So you're right, it is future value, not at 5 years out, at about 1 year out. But you'll have a chance of rent growth over 5 years to make up for that. So yeah, downtown Toronto is expensive, typically 1,000 square foot is what we see, right? So it is tough. That's why you have to buy smart. Not everything is good, right? There's lots of crap out there.
Well, I have a question for your projection of 25 years. Say you're holding a condo for that long.
Yep.
Typically when a condo ages past a certain number of years, like usually 15, the prices plateau, right? Like
Oh, I thought you meant maintenance fees.
Yeah, maintenance fees go up, but then the price goes plateaus. It doesn't go up anymore. So therefore, you're actually not generating. It's not generating any more equity for year to year. So would it not be better to sell after a certain point and use that money to buy new? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
These aren't. What I want to demonstrate here. These aren't prescriptive models like hold this for this long and only follow. You have to obviously be as flexible as you need to be for it to make sense.
Yeah. So
So you're right. So what happens with older condos? Typically, there is a plateauing effect, and it's typically because maintenance fees go up. So maintenance fees are no longer 56 cents, 58 cents, 60 cents. They're up for 80 cents, 90 cents, $1 a square foot, and they become less desirable because they're not nearly hit. But work for some people because they're larger square footage generally.
Yeah.
Right. So are you going to continue to see the exact same growth as other condos, maybe, maybe not. So those are the things that you'll have to play with and re-strategize as you go along. Yeah. Oh, okay. May I continue? Okay, so $160,000 equity takeout, and this one, 280. Okay, how much money did Tommy and Gina have on hand from the beginning? 90. 160 plus 280 plus 90 equals how much?
530.
530. 530 becomes their seed capital. Right? So Tommy and Gina are like, oh man, 200 grand, yeah, that's a decent salary. How the hell am I going to save up for another 20% for a down payment for another place? Tommy and Gina are starting off with a pretty good place, actually. I chose a starting place for them that is beyond most people. But I wanted to demonstrate the concept. So yeah, step one, analyze your portfolio. This is pretty all of you. Analyze your own portfolios and 8% loans value. It means you need to know current value of your own properties. And then figure out your maximum equity takeout is, and you figured it out. Figure out your cash flow after your refi. Sorry, so, Gina's condo here is maybe 400 as well. After the refi. So what do? You go out and buy another cash flow negative asset? Hopefully not, right? So determine what your capital, the next step. We're still in the acquisition phase. Determine what your capital can buy. 530,000. I'm going to show you. Okay, here. Just look at where my cursor is right now. It says sample. I know you can't read it. Sample triplex. Sample triplex acquisition. 1.2 million. Down payment of 240,000. Roughly, will generate $5,700 in rent and cash flow of about $500 cash flow. Roughly. This is a very basic asset, right? There are variants to this, obviously. We just had a client purchase for 1.35, and his rent was $5,700. After a couple of months of stabilization, new tenants, he didn't even do any renovations. He just got the rents up to market. $7,000 in rent, and much more cash flow. Right? So there are variants to this. I'm just using a very basic scenario. So one thing you're going to be looking for, to answer your question, is what do you require? When you acquire, you're going to try to offset this negative cash flow. So you can think of your properties in isolation, but you can also think of them as a portfolio, acting as a portfolio together. So you try to buy something cash flow positive, try to offset the cash flow negative. Or Tim's point, maybe all you do is refinance up to zero cash flow. And you don't exceed that to try to get all your equity out. You get some equity out. Maybe that's enough. Maybe if they didn't, if Tommy and Gina didn't pull out 160 and 280, they pulled out, I don't know, less. They could still, actually I can calculate exactly how much. Because for every $100,000 you borrow, how much does it increase your borrowing? $450. So if I took $100,000 less here, and I took $100,000 less here, I would probably still have enough to do some investing and be a cash flow neutral. Right? Depends on how aggressive you want to be. Depends on what your capabilities are. But these are the types of levers that we play with. You don't necessarily always have to go to the max. If you're aggressive and you want to try to grow quickly, maybe that's an option for you. Right? So, okay, good. So let's figure out what these guys do. Acquisition. More acquisition. So the assumption for this is that they can qualify for a mortgage. In fact, they can qualify for 2 more mortgages, let's just say. Lending rules are easier or whatever. Assume that they can buy 2, so they have $530,000 in capital. How much was the triplex? 1.2 million down payment.
240.
240. So I've done this enough to know that your closing costs are roughly 45,000. So they're in the ballpark of being able to acquire 2. Is it exact? I don't know. It's not. But you're close. Right? So let's assume that they can go out and buy 2. So run the financials for all the properties. Well, I just told you. For the triplex, it's $500 positive cash flow. $500 positive cash flow. So, are we close to our goal? $10,000 cash flow? How close are we? We're at $200. We're not there. So, let's see. But how do we get there? Okay, so we got 2 options here. So we got the, I call this scenario A, the lazy man approach. It's not the lazy man approach, you're still doing all this stuff. The idea here is just wait. Just wait. So I'm arguably cash flow neutral right now. What would happen over the course of 12 years? Right? So we already said property values will probably go up. Not in a straight line, but let's say it goes up and down, ebbs and flows, and hopefully it's doing okay by the time that you plan to whatever. Right? Rents are up, interest rates are probably higher, and inflation, we call inflation roughly 2%. So what do your financials look in 12 years? I'm not going to tell you to do this. It's a lot of math. Actually, this is the exact reason I have this model. Look. Here. So this is your lazy man approach. Wait 12 years.
Can you zoom in?
Sorry?
Zoom in, like,
Oh, yeah.
large.
Technology these days. Yes!
Wow, we can read it now.
Okay, so let's say, oh, forget private investments. Forget it says that. Let's just say this is Tommy's condo, Gina's condo. Mortgage balance, mortgage balance. Over the course of 12 years. So I've run this for 12 years. So rent growth over 12 years, 44%. Property growth at 5%. Interest rates at the end, 5%. Because we're not going to be living in a low interest rate environment forever. Amortization. Here's the key. And Flo pointed it out, but I'm not sure everyone got it. Re-amortize your mortgages back up to 30 years. That will improve your cash flow. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand if you don't know what I'm talking about. You know. You don't know? You know? Okay, good. Inflation, 2%. So basically, at the end of 12 years, let's see. Alright, so here's your existing properties. So we start off with 2. Your new properties with 2 more. So these are your triplexes over the course of 12 years as well, right? Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. After I re-amortize my mortgage back out to 30 years, $10,000 in cash flow, according to these assumptions. Actually, it's really funny. I ran this scenario the first time and it hit like almost exactly 10,000. I was like, oh man, I couldn't have done it better.
I feel like we should clap or something.
They met their goals. So, hold on. One of the questions is, how long will it take from negative cash flow to eventually hit cash flow neutral? I don't know. I didn't model that. But and actually, in this scenario, they're starting at cash flow neutral. But imagine you're in a cash flow neutral scenario now, and in 12 years, because I've grown my portfolio, and I'm letting time do its thing, all my properties are doing this, right? Rents are going up, I pay down the mortgage, and I re-advertise my mortgages back out. This is $10,000 in cash flow. Am I doing something wrong here? So, like, here's your opportunity. What here do you take issue with? Is this, like, you go, oh, okay, well, crap, you're assuming it's this, so that's why you're able to get there. It's basic math. I tried to strip it back to first principles, back to like the way Elon Musk is pulling everything back. First principles, understanding the semantic tree and the big branches, and we've worked it out. Yeah.
In this scenario, this family has 4 investment properties. It's very difficult to get a bank to 80% LTV for all 4 properties.
Is that true? Maybe it's true. You're absolutely right. The hardest thing here, the whole, where this model falls apart, actually, is mortgages. I said that right at the beginning. It is the hardest thing. I'm not going to lie. Is it possible? It is possible, right? You just have, maybe you need to restructure your portfolio, maybe you need partners, joint venture partners to help qualify for mortgage, maybe you need to put larger down payments down, right?
Maybe you look at B lending.
Maybe you look at B lending, so maybe you
What about
do
C lending? Some of us have no choice. If you have 2 or 3, at let's say 4%, you got to go up to 10 for the next 3. Would you do it? And now you're averaging about 7. How does it look then?
maybe
10 is not B lending. 10% is private money.
Right.
This is
Some of us don't have a choice.
yeah.
So B lending is like 1% more.
So I mean, what? Yeah.
So
So
we're starting at B and having to go to private C. Okay, so 4 and
or
then 10.
DEF.
So 7 average.
Yeah. No. These are
wondering
all
how this
very
would
very
work.
valid concerns, right? So what do you do at that point? That's part of the reason sometimes people turn to alternative strategies. Maybe what they need to do is their goal is to get to larger down payments. The way to get to larger down payments, maybe they do fix and flips. Maybe there's other things that they have to employ, other strategies. Or they'll have to, maybe they need to look for joint venture partners. Right? So this is not a smooth, easy road, right? But that's why we're here, to learn these strategies so we can employ them, right? So we can get to our goals. So, is it impossible? Mortgage 3 and 4? I have more than 4 mortgages. Sam has sure as hell a hell of a lot more than I have, right? Like, individual people can still make this happen. You just need to make sure you plan your cards right. Sam's portfolio is double, at least 50% larger. So, yeah, it's possible. Right? Financing is going to be a biggest challenge. Assumptions built into here. So, yeah, I mean, I've assumed 5%. Maybe it's less. And if it's less, and my goal was $10,000 of cash flow, then what? If they're longer to get there. If it's less growth. If it's less growth, maybe, oh, actually, that's wrong. Actually, this is one of the points I wanted to demonstrate. The cool thing about this one is check out the cash flow number, keep your eye there, and then here, this is, appreciation. Let's say 0% appreciation. Doesn't affect my model. Why? Because I'm not selling it. I'm not refinancing it. I don't depend. Here's the cool thing. I'm not even dependent on the real estate market at this point. I'm dependent on rent growth. I'm dependent upon, well, pretty much just rent growth at this point. Right? So, interest rates. Model it at 6%, whatever you want. Whatever you want to model it at. Here's another good exercise. Here, let's go 7% interest rate. I'm still pretty damn close to my goal, right? People think the world is going to end. It's not going to end. We had, like, obviously I'm too young to say from a first-hand perspective, but we had double-digit interest rates. Yeah, real estate plunged, But people who are able to hold, or if they understood these principles, they eventually would come out of it and be okay. And 2008 or whatever downturn, even last year's downturn, still, if I held through it, I'd be okay, except if I invested uptown, which is why I don't invest uptown.
But this is assuming you've got two solid, this triplex is like your best case, your best thing, investment, I think, in the city of Toronto, like what you guys are doing. But assuming you can't, you're not the kind of investor that can get to that, like you're not comfortable with it, you don't want to get into an
Which is
house
totally,
tenant.
actually one of the things in our next scenario, I'm going to be showing more of a growth. So not just wait 12 years. But this is a really good point. Like, the thing is, can I manage a bunch of triplexes and have like 12, 20, 25 tenants, 25 units, 25 doors? Maybe that's not right for you, right? So this is why, again, this is just a framework, a model, a way to think about your portfolio and your path forward, rather than it being a prescriptive formula, right? It's going to be different for everyone. I mean, Flo was just talking about how much work it is for one triplex, and it's true,
Yeah.
right? It's true.
But
So
it is work. Like, I will say that it is work to get to this cash flow, right? Like this money doesn't come by itself, so you have to have that mentality too. It is like a part-time job. So.
it's a business, actually.
Yeah, it's a sorry, business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to go down. You're assuming that the rents will rise every year. We're assuming we're gonna have the right government in place. In the 90s, rents were capped for 8 years. Right now, you've got a conservative government. I'll bet you anything, soon you're gonna have an NDP government, and that's all gonna go downhill,
Okay, cool.
rent-wise.
No, it's a good point. And actually, I want to play with this variable, right? So our assumption here, we talked about it. We said, okay, you got capped rents at 1.8%. Let's assume we don't have rent growth past that. Let's say it matches inflation. Remember the example that I drew up on the board? So rent increase no more than inflation. I have zero cash flow starting today, and in 12 years, I've still managed to generate cash flow. And, you play this with however you want. Maybe you go, okay, well, rents aren't even going to go up 2%. Okay, fine. Like, this is just a model, right? You can believe whatever you want. This is one of the reasons we invest in areas where we think have a future, not a past. I don't have a crystal ball, can't predict the future, but we have reasonable expectation to believe that things are still going to happen. Rents are going to continue to still rise because of the housing shortage, because there's 140,000 immigrants coming in every year, and our housing stock is only growing at 35 to 40,000 units, and there's only 1.7 occupants per unit, still indicate deficit of units every year.
I would also argue that the conservative government or conservative policies actually cause rents to go down, not up. Well, I should say down, not up, but cause more fluctuation in the rental market than a regulated rent-controlled market. So if you look at Alberta, massive investor out there, it's a non-rent controlled market. When oil prices have gone down, rents have gone down. But here in Toronto, in Ontario, in 2008, when we had a downturn in the economy here, if you guys were investors then, I bet not a single one of you had to go to your tenants and renegotiate your rents because rents have gone down. That's the effect of rent control. It's a buffer. It prevents increases, but it also prevents decreases.
Thank you, Wiseland. Cool.
No, young Padawans.
Here, the last thing I just want to very quickly was here. I want to show the impact. So I'm going to reset my assumptions just back to where they were. I wanted to see the impact of cash flow over time. So the cash flow number here doesn't match that one because I've, for certain reasons, forget that. But just look at what happens over time. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12. And you can play with this however you want. You can set rents at 2% and run the same exercise. What I want you to take away from this is the importance of time. That was like one of the very first charts that I showed you. I want you to understand time is the most important factor in real estate. There are no two ways about it. Like however you want to think about it, if you want to think about real estate in a multivariate equation that you want to solve, theta is the most important variable, right? It's time. You can play with interest rates, you can play with inflation, you can play with rent growth, you can play with appreciation rates. If you play with all these numbers, if you play with this thing I've built, this model, you'll always come back to time as being the most important variable. Which means the takeaway point here is take action. Take action, do something now. Because time, everyone thinks money is their most valuable asset. Money is not your most valuable asset. Time is your most valuable asset. And actually, I know I joke a lot, but like I'm actually very honored that you're here tonight. Because the fact that you're spending time here, when I know that time is your most valuable asset, means a lot to me. In the same way, whenever I'm working with any of you, and I'm working with any of my clients, the most valuable thing I can offer is my time. And during that time, hopefully I offer some good advice. But it's time. Time is your most valuable asset. And I hope I've been able to demonstrate that today. Does that make sense? Okay, so next. So the next scenario. So this is step 3A. This is choose, I call it choose your own adventure. Either scenario A, lazy approach, or, oops. Oh, did I teach all? This was supposed to be a teaching moment. Yeah, that's fine. I've talked about this and stuff. Okay, here. Choose your adventure, scenario B. Take massive action. So, same concept as I mentioned before. Double your portfolio in 4 years. Eventually sell off half the pit, which is over here. Let's just see where this gets us. And again, there's going to be caveats and okay, can I get the mortgage and everything else. Put that aside, just so you understand the model. In 4 years. So I bought these properties. In 4 years, do an equity takeout. You know what? I'm going to do two screens. This is public 50. Is that good? Can you see? Okay, now I'm just going to walk you through this quickly. So let's say in 4 years, according to 5% appreciation, it's the same model as I showed you before. This is Tommy's condo, this is Gina's condo, this is Triplex 1 and Triplex 2. There's enough equity to do an equity takeout to go buy another like asset. So I do an equity takeout from here and I can go buy something similar to this. I do an equity takeout here and I have enough to go buy a similar asset. Similarly, Triplex, I can pull out enough to go buy another Triplex, roughly speaking. Alright, so what do? This is property 1, property 2, after the equity takeout. They're both negative cash flow again. Here's Triplex 1, Triplex 2. So previously, I was generating pretty good cash flow out of the triplex because of rising rents and everything else. Now, I'm back down because I took a huge refinance. Pretty typical. But I've gone and bought a couple more properties. So yeah, it's cash flow negative, and I bought a couple triplexes cash flow positive, so offsets them. So overall, still not very far. How much cash flow do I have in this scenario? Right, add it all up. Pretty much at zero cash flow still. And that's a very typical scenario. You'll refinance, you'll go buy another property, and then your cash flow is back to where it was. It stepped up. You're like, what the hell? I don't feel like I'm getting any further ahead. But the reality is you are getting further ahead. So here, let me show you. So if you wait 8 years, so let's say at 5% growth over the course of 8 years, we're trying to get to 50% loan to value. This is property. This is Tommy's condo, Gina's condo. This is your 2 triplexes, and they bought 4 more properties. Okay, this 8 years at 5% growth means that I'm roughly at 50% loan to value. What do? I sell off half. So I still have this property, still have this property. I still have this property, I still have this property, but these properties I don't have anymore. I sold them all. This was my equity, this was the proceeds, this was sale price minus mortgage. This is capital gains tax. So this is the amount of capital gains. Okay, here's a question for you. Which properties do I sell? Do I sell the earlier properties or the later properties?
Later would reduce your capital gains.
Exactly. I sell my later properties. Smaller capital gains, bigger paycheck at the end. Right? The only exception there is if you decide you want to sell your primary residence. That's because of capital gains aside. But anyway. Alright, question? Okay. So this is your capital gains. This is your capital gains tax bill. No, sorry. Sale proceeds, capital gains tax. Yeah, your capital gains tax bill. Roughly speaking, if you have your capital gains tax bill is roughly 25% of your overall capital gains. Why? Just a rule of thumb. How do you get that? Why 25%?
And then 50% marginal rate.
50% marginal tax rate. Most likely you're going to hit 50% marginal tax rate. So just 25% of your capital gains ends up being your tax bill. Okay? And then realtor fees. Damn realtors. And then this is your takeaway. So look at this number, $492,000. What's my mortgage on this property? $522,000. Call them equal. Essentially, I'm paying off the mortgage so it happen. So imagine, I don't know, I screwed up something. So I've got property 1. This is Tommy's condo, Gina's condo. I have triplex 1, triplex 2. No mortgages on any of them. So this is, $4 grand in rent, $4 grand in rent, $9 grand in rent, $9 grand in rent. I've got my expenses. I've got some expenses, cash flow. Like their original goal was 5,000, maybe 10,000. The title of today was 10,000. We've demonstrated a scenario where we've managed to blow that out of the water. Right? Yes, there's certain assumptions here that we're going to get up to 8 properties. Some of us are, right? Some of us are already there, at 8 properties plus, right? This is the road that we're on. Like if you have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 8, this is your potential. And I'm not saying you have 8 triplexes, but even just take regular condos as an example. There are certain things you're going to have to overcome, like figuring out how to get to cash flow at least neutral on some of these properties after I do an equity takeout. That's one of the challenges, actually. But this is a massive amount of cash flow. I don't know, would you be happy with that? Does this seem far-fetched? Like, if I told you right off the bat that $20,000 of positive cash flow was possible, would you believe me?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't believe me. I would have thought it was a scam. Like it's really easy. It's really easy to like I wouldn't have believed it. I've had to break it down. Like this is the Elon Musk way of thinking about things. Like this is first principles, and I'm working off first principles. I don't know. Do you find this interesting? Or is this boring? I see a lot of blank faces. I'm trying to read the audience here.
Maybe people are digesting. Because I remember the first time you showed me, it was a lot. I was like, oh,
It's a lot. That's why the challenge that I run into, and I mentioned this today on the WhatsApp chat, the hard thing is not actually going to do this, it's actually trying to teach it. Because I can't, I'm trying to figure out an easy way to show all this, but how do you show all this without numbers? I had some pretty, I had the Monopoly pieces. Conceptually, that's how I'm trying to demonstrate the principle, but I'm actually showing with hard numbers right now. Will this take 12 years? Maybe it takes 15, maybe it takes 18, I don't know. You have to vary your assumptions. Maybe it's not as easy as, oh, I'm going to refi and go buy another property. Right? Maybe it's not that easy. Maybe you have to refi 2 properties for every 1 property. I don't know. Whatever. Right? Conceptually, this is the model to grow though. Right? Like the people on the Volition team are working towards this, essentially. And our clients are working towards this. What you do depends on your goals. How many times you want to iterate. How many times you want to refi and try to go buy more. It's a lot of freaking work. I'm not going to lie. Right? It's a lot of work to do this. Every single refinance every one you do makes the next one more difficult. Every property you purchase makes the next one more difficult. It's not an easy process. But the question is, are you going to keep your eye on the ball? And is your goal worth it to you? So that's why it's important to come back to your goals. It's like, what if my goal was only for 10,000 positive cash flow, but I'm somehow on this road to 20,000 and killing myself in doing so? This is actually the conversation my wife and I have all the time. She's like, why are we still buying more properties? I'm like, I don't know. Really need to define my beliefs better. No, but anyway, the takeaway is this may not be a realistic path for you because of the amount of work. Acquisition and stabilization of a property takes 12 to 24 months. It's a lot of work. That's the hardest period. After that, you're cruising a little bit. That's a lot of work. So the question is, why keep on doing it if you're surpassing your goals anyway? If you didn't need to. Enjoy life a little bit, right? Even on your journey. So anyway, oh shit, you see my purchase today. I bought Lego for my son. Sorry?
You know where you live now too.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, everyone knows where I live because I went on a property tour last month and I took them to my house.
I said that you sold the later properties in that scenario. So how long did you have the later ones for? Was it 6 years? Total time. Because the first ones you kept because you had more equity, you want to sell those ones. The second ones you acquired.
How long?
Yeah, did you?
I said, according to 5% growth, it's roughly I say 50% loans value. It's not exactly. I try to go a little less than 50% loans value because I need to cover capital gains and rental fees. So it's I don't know if it's 48%, 45%. I don't know. But roughly. Actually. Okay, so I was going to say, refi, so limiting factors, mortgages. This is one of the reasons, again, I know it's going to sound like I'm crapping on properties outside Toronto. I don't mean to, but I want to make a point here. This is one of the reasons I don't buy outside Toronto. This is one of the reasons I don't buy cheap properties. Because my mortgage qualification is extremely important to me. If I waste it on a $300,000 property when I could be using it, I mean, you're probably thinking, oh, it's good qualification. Yeah, it is good qualification, but it's also about number of properties, number of mortgages, number of doors. It can severely limit the pool of lenders that you already have too many mortgages. Right? So it's part of the reason, like, maybe it makes sense for you, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, maybe there's another way to achieve your goals.
Yeah, gonna say, it also affects your rent increasing. It all depends where your property is. If you're not in a really good area, or you're in a cheap town or whatever, you can only raise your rent so much.
So I'll give you a real life example. So when I started investing, my parents said, "Nat, do you really want to do this? Don't you remember what we went through when you were a kid?" I was born and raised in Belleville, right? I was born and raised in Belleville. My parents had a few rental properties in Belleville and Trent. They thought, oh, near the air base, that's got to be good, right? All those sometimes. And then they bought in Belleville because they thought close to home. Fairly logical reasons, right? My parents were going through hell. Bad tenants, tons and tons of problems. And I didn't have the slide up, but I talked about this a lot. The 4 risk factors of real estate. Tenants, market, property, and the investor. Tenants, all the issues, tenants, whatever. Market, that's the market's going up, market going down, interest rates, and all that stuff. It's a risk to your business. Property, the actual property itself, is in good condition and it's going to run well. And the investor themselves. Surprisingly, the investor themselves plays a huge role in the success of your business, the real estate venture, right? Like, for example, I know that I can take a dogwood property and I can turn it into a performer because of my experience, my expertise, my knowledge, and my network, my Rolodex. Right? So the investor themselves plays a huge role in that as well. But it doesn't matter which way you slice it, the biggest risk to your business is tenants. Doesn't matter which way you slice it. You can talk about the market, talk about interest rates, talk about everything else, it's your tenants, especially here in Ontario. So I go back to my parents' example. They had, people on welfare, ODSP. I don't think they called it ODSP. But anyway, that tenant profile, because they had crappy little properties in a crappy little town. And I know I'm crapping on this town and these tenants, but I'm speaking from personal experience. Dealing with that was a nightmare for my parents, and by extension for me too, because I had to go clean up these rental properties in between turnover and stuff. Which is the reason the only tenant profile I want to cater to now are young professionals, millennials. And I'm not saying it's going to completely eliminate your risk, but it mitigates your risk. And that's the name of the game. That's what we're trying to do in this business, mitigate your risk. You cannot eliminate risk, but you can mitigate your risk. So part of the reason that I tend towards a larger metropolitan center with better tenant profiles, and again, I'm not saying you can't get these elsewhere. Google has an office in Waterloo, right? So you can find these good tenant profiles elsewhere as well. But this business model that we have established here, it fires on every cylinder and it works on every front. So anyway, it's one opinion. It's not gospel. It's just one perspective. It happens to have worked for us. It's happened to work for a lot of our clients. So anyway, it's just food for thought. And actually, I'm not sure if you grabbed it on your way in. If you're new here or if you haven't grabbed it before, we have this white paper, Why Toronto. And take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, we're biased. We operate better here. Our own investment properties are here. But it's just food for thought. Take a look. Chris has some copies there. Take a look and see if anything resonates with you. Okay, so what's the watershed moment? So basically, it's every time you have enough equity that you can do a refinance, and you can take that equity out and go buy another property. It's going to be different for every property, different time frames, but that's what you're always looking for. If I were to refinance this at 80% loan to value, if I can qualify for it, or if I can refinance this at 80% loan to value, how much is my equity takeout? How much will it cost me to buy another property? That's what we're thinking in terms of these watershed moments that are going to help you accelerate the growth of your portfolio. Variables, yeah, appreciation, interest rates. I hope I demonstrated interest rates don't play as much of a role as you might think. The media, the news, they love talking about interest rates. It's like all over my Google feed, and because I'm connected to a bunch of real estate investors, it's all over my Facebook feed too. But interest rates actually don't play as much of a role as you might think. Here's why. Why did interest rates go up? You have a better economy. And what did I just say? What happens when you have a better economy? Economic growth, population growth, job growth, and all that stuff. Which means eventually rent growth. The correction factors, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that they're keeping economic growth in check. Right? But there's economic growth, which means all the other things, which also means rent growth. So according to real estate theory and economic theory, because the rise in interest rates are a consequence of having inflation and as a consequence of inflation, higher rents. So if your rents are going, if interest rates are going up, yeah, your rents should be going up too. Especially if you're not buying in, some butt-fuck nowhere towns. Yeah, it's kind of crude, but okay, and again, it doesn't have to be this prescriptive. It's not like it's going to be 4 years and I've got to double my portfolio. It's a little more malleable than that, right? It's like whenever it makes sense for you, whenever you have the opportunity to do so, whenever you qualify for those mortgages, those are your opportunities.
You're also, your equity increases throughout time too, right? So when you do get a new mortgage, even though it does go up for
I'd love to say that equity helps you qualify for your mortgage.
No, I'm saying like, as time goes by, you have more equity in your property. So when you apply for a new mortgage, you go at a higher rate, not paying as much.
But how much you take out?
Oh, okay,
Oh, what I thought you were saying was more equity helps you qualify for mortgage.
No.
There are equity-based
No,
mortgages.
yes, there's equity-based mortgages too, right?
65% sometimes.
Yeah, like $1 million in bank account, so you can qualify for it.
So there are different ways. This is why you need to talk to good people. Don't talk to me. I don't know anything about financing. The last thing, the myth of cash flow. The reality is, again, this is cash flow now. The main role of cash flow now is to help you hold for the long term. And what I mean by that is through the occasional vacancy, repairs, things just aren't going your way. The real estate market is taking a downturn. If I have cash flow, it allows me to hold through all those things. That's why a couple $100 of cash flow, doesn't mean anything, because it can evaporate like that if you need a new furnace, or if I need a new roof, I need new windows. Gone. That's why it's not important now. It's important later. If I have $10,000 of cash flow, I can absorb a furnace if it blows up once in a while. Right? Cash flow later is important. Cash flow now is a myth, generally speaking. Generally speaking, cash flow now is a myth. Right? So don't be thinking I'm going to quit my job now and live off that cash flow. It's not a reality. It's not a reality for most people. Right? Because the reality is you're going to need to recycle that cash flow back into the property through the form of repairs or upgrades upon tenant turnover. If you're trying to get cheaper rents or a tenant profile, right? So don't depend on cash flow now. It's largely a myth. Would you agree? Yes. Pitfalls. I don't know. There are pitfalls. This is not an easy road, right? This is not a straightforward, linear path. It's a very up and down. Think of it, the best way I saw it demonstrated was seen this? Iceberg. Right? This is basically the life of a real estate investor. Like, oh great, look at all this success. This is all the crap that we've had to go through to have that success. Right? You have to remember, real estate investing is a misnomer. We're not, if I was an investor, I wouldn't be doing all the crap that I'm doing. If I was an investor, I would be buying a share of Google, buying a share of Apple. That's an investor. I'm just sitting back. Or, as an investor, I give my money to a guy who knows something about real estate, letting him do it. That's being an investor. Being a business owner, when you're investing in real estate, you're buying a business in a box. Right? And you have to be prepared for everything that comes along with it. We're not even talking about all the rest of the stuff, your bookkeeping, your accounting, your whatever, like all the 1,001 things that come up. So it's not a straightforward path, and it may not make sense for everyone. So you have to dig deep and really ask yourself whether this makes sense to you, and or how big you want to grow your portfolio, because it comes at a cost. Right? Okay, so shoot, we're running out of time. Do you want to see an example of pre-construction?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try and go through it quickly. One, we are over time. If you want to leave now, I won't be offended. Do you want to keep on going?
Yeah.
I'll try to do this first. I'll try not to go off on tangents. Okay. So 3 plus 10. Okay, so this is actually fairly similar to the condo that Chris bought. So I'm using that as my example right now. All right, value. Let's say 25. E25 rent now 3,200. Rent in 5 years at 4% growth 3,590. Condo fees roughly 550. Property tax roughly 300. Mortgage is 2,850. Cash flow is about 150. This is an example of buying pre-construction now at, this is today's rent, this is future rent, this is maintenance, property tax, mortgage, and not a lot of cash flow. However, if you purchase this now, it is cash flow negative. Okay? So, what do I do? Okay, let's grow this property. So this is now, sorry, this is the value of it now. The value of it in 5 years. Let's say it grows at 5%. So what's 5% growth on 825 for 5 years? I'm just kidding. 1.05. Right? Let's say it's worth 1.05. Let's say your original mortgage, do we even have that there?
Yeah.
No, the original mortgage balance was 660, according to this purchase price. This is your original mortgage, but this is the new value. So what do? What LTV are we looking for? 80, which equates to 824, which equates to an equity taken of 182. In theory, if it was worth 1.05, and when your original mortgage, when you close, is going to be 660, and let's say you could immediately turn around and refinance it. Refinance for this, an equity take of 182. What do you do with this? We'll do it again. Go buy another one. So let's go buy another one. So we're buying another one at in 5 years. Yeah, we just did that. go buy another one. So let's say that it's identical to the first one. You buy it for 1.05, and then what happens in 5 years? So let's say it's worth 1.05 in at the 5-year mark. So at the 10-year mark, %5 growth at 1.05. Future value is 1.34. The old mortgage here was 842. The new mortgage that I could potentially get on this one, if I did it all over again, 1.075, which means my equity takeout is 233 for both property 1 and property 2 now. So it's this times 2, effectively. Go buy 2 more. And then actually, this is a bit easier because you're buying pre-construction. It's not, you're not dealing as much with the mortgage issues as much. Right? So now I go, so in this scenario here, I have one little house. By this point, I have 2 little houses. And then if I did my equity takeout and bought 2 more, I'd have 4 of these houses now. Right? You follow? So I'm building my portfolio step by step in a slightly different way with pre-construction. And I'm also demonstrating that when pre-construction is finally built, according to nominal rent growth, we can cash flow, or at least cash flow neutral. All right, so here's the next step. Okay, year 15. So these guys are just doing bills. By year 15, they're done. Why don't we assign them? Let's see what happens. So you assign it, you're not even closing. I don't even need mortgages on them. Let's assign it. So I'm buying them at 1.34. The property value is 1.72. My realtor fees are 97. Signing fee, lawyer fee, call 6. My profit is 268. Okay? So basically, this is what I bought it for. This is what I'm assigning it for, minus some fees. And then this is my my profit. So I'm going to forget about capital gains for now or whatever. It's more complicated with pre-construction anyway, so we'll talk about that later. But this is my takeaway. Okay? At this point, why don't we say, hey, we'll take it one step further. Let's sell. So we sold this guy, we sold this guy. Let's sell this guy too. Again, it's worth 1.72. The mortgage value at that point would have been 964. So it's worth 1.72. 964. Realtor fees 97. Lawyer fee 1. Your profit is 268. This is times 2. It's 2. Basically, this number ends up being, I don't know, a crap load of money, whatever this is. This is enough to pay off the mortgage on this guy, and then some, actually. I think I calculated it here that you'll actually, after you sell these 3, you pay off the mortgage of this one and still have $300,000 in capital after, like in excess. You're walking with a $300,000 paycheck, and you have a property free and clear. And the rent on this guy in 15 years, according to 4% growth, was $5,800. Expenses were $1,150, and I don't know, somewhere in the range of roughly $5,000 in cash flow. No mortgage.
So you need 2 of those. Get one more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can keep on going. Obviously, this is a slower route, but what I'm demonstrating here is if I were to start off with a pre-construction condo, obviously this is 20% down on a $825,000 condo, so that's still $180,000, sorry, $160,000. But one of the developers we're working with is basically 5% down now, and then $1,000 a month until you make up the other 5%. So I'll call it 10% over the course of a couple of years. And then maybe there's other ways for you to do it too. Actually, I think the next scenario I have this was the scenario that I actually want to talk about quickly. I had very little money. So this is a scenario that a lot of us fall into, or know people who fall into this scenario. So this might not be applicable to you, and if not great, but you probably know someone who's falling into this scenario. So still pay attention, because there's ways for you to help those people. Those people are like kids who are just coming out of school and like don't have a leg up and don't have they're, millennials these days pretty much have given up on the average millennial on being able to own Toronto, right? You see those articles all the time. But there are ways, if you're smart about what you're doing. Like for example, this is like, imagine that I bought an $800,000 condo with $40,000 down now, 5%. Right? Okay, well, even 40,000 might be a lot for some, but you know, the average person we talk to, even if they don't have a lot of money, they say, okay, I have about 50,000. They're gonna able to save it, whatever. Or you can draw this from a line of credit. You can borrow this from the bank mom and dad. And it doesn't have to be a gift. It doesn't have to be a handout. Right? This is what I keep on telling everyone. You can, for example, say your parents live in Toronto, and they have owned a property for many years, and now it's worth a lot more. And now, let's say they can get a line of credit, a HELOC on their property. You can borrow that HELOC at prime plus half, whatever. You can pay them a premium on it. You can make it a win for them as well. You borrow, you pay all their interest, pay them a little bit of a premium as well, and now you have your seed capital. So there's ways to do it. You just have to be creative about it. You have to understand what you're trying to achieve. You have to educate yourself. You have to surround yourself by good people. But there are ways to get started. Right? So I mean, in this case, I worked it all out. Okay, here's something cool actually. 5% now, and let's say $1,000 a month to make up the next 40 grand. So consider it a forced savings plan for these young millennials who are just starting out, right? Forced savings plan. They come up with another 40 grand, so that's 10% at the time that they have to take possession, occupancy / close. And let's say they can qualify for a mortgage, and under owner-occupied principal residence, they don't need the other 10%. They can go 90% mortgage, 10% down. CMHC insured, 25-year amortization, 3.1% insurance premium on it. I've worked out all the math. It raises your mortgage by like, your monthly mortgage by like this much. What actually hurts the most is the fact that it's 25-year AM, not 30-year AM. So it hurts a little more, but this scenario, it was this particular condo, for example, 3+ den. Make a sacrifice. Live in the den, rent out the 3 bedrooms. You can actually get to almost cash flow neutral by making that sacrifice. Yeah.
When millennial's gonna be able to close on a $700K mortgage? Like I get the down payment, but like once it comes time to close, like.
So 5 years down the road, right? So 5 years down the road, maybe, I mean, hopefully they're making more money at that point in time, right? So hopefully their mortgage qualification. Maybe by that point they have hooked up, and now it's 2 people qualifying for that mortgage. You add your spouse / partner to title. So the 2 of you are qualifying, combined income. Maybe I built a whole shitload of equity in this property already. I could sure as hell find a joint venture partner. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying like, you know, it'd be hard to qualify on your own.
That's why, like, I'm not saying it's a shoe in it. I'm not saying it's a sure thing. I'm saying that there are solutions, right? And it may not be your ideal. Ideally, I would like to close on this and call this my own. Maybe you can't, but maybe you don't have to. Maybe you assign it worst case scenario. Maybe I qualify for, I need a mortgage of this much. I can only qualify for a mortgage of this much. Maybe this is the difference that I'm taking as a HELOC. I'm borrowing the HELOC from my parents, or I find a partner of some sort, and they become a lender partner to me. Right? So there's so many different ways to make this stuff happen. What I'm trying to convey to you, and like if you're in a situation, or if you are if you know people who are in this situation, there are solutions. And I want to convey that, all is, not all is lost. Like these young people, I talked to a bunch of young people and they're like, I've just given up. Like there's no chance. And I feel for them, right? Like my son's only 1 right now, but it's going to be even worse in 20 years when he's at a school. But I want to demonstrate, and I don't plan to just give huge handouts. I want him to learn these concepts, to understand business, to understand how this stuff works, so he can be successful in his own way, right? I mean, the point here is that there are options, and here I think I've worked it out. If you were to rent out 3 bedrooms, live in the den, you could, you could be living in downtown Toronto for virtually free. I think it's like $400 or something like that. So it's the OMG, WTF, I'm almost living for free in downtown Toronto. Let's say it might be a possibility for you if you play your cards right, if you're smart about it. This is part of the reason we don't buy, if we have the ability to buy more, we don't buy just bachelors or micro suites or 1 bedrooms. We try to buy 2 bedrooms or 1 plus den where the den can be turned into living. In this case, we've gone to the nth degree, the extreme, 3 plus den, right? So anyway, I wanted to demonstrate this scenario just so you see how there's possibilities. And I've worked out the scenario. You go a bit further, and you put 10% down on your next one, if you can do an equity takeout or whatever. If you can't, maybe this is as far as you can go for now. Or if you can't qualify for any mortgage, maybe you assign it. And now I have this much equity because I built all that equity. I've assigned it. I didn't need to get a mortgage at the very end, but now I've got a bigger down payment for my new place. And because I have a bigger down payment, I have a smaller mortgage. Maybe I can close on that payment. Right? There's just all these ways, all these options.
Is there any project in Toronto that the deposit structure is 10%, that you don't need 20?
Hey Chris, how much do you put down in your condo?
5%. Like throughout the break to occupancy?
5%. So the one that we're working with today.
That are 15 to 10%.
Oh, that's 20.
So the one of the developers we're working with is 5% initially, and then $1,000 a month, so you make it another 5%. We're expecting the new release in spring. If you're on board.
For what area?
We're gonna try.
You mean the Daniels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had 12 clients lined up to buy that, and only like 3 got one through us. So frustrating. It was such a popular project because of the deposit structure and everything, but we're hoping in the spring that we'll have more access once the new release. So yeah, short answer, yeah, there are options. And thankfully, the one that we're looking at is not in the core, so which means that you're looking at $850 a square foot rather than 1,000 or 1,200 a square foot. Yeah. So anyway, I keep on working out the details of this particular example where they buy another property and they follow the same path. So anyway, I think you get the point. So, I don't know, do I have anything else? Oh, yeah, it's basically just showing like, you're starting off with 40 grand in this pre-construction example, but basically after property 2 is built and you close on it, you've actually generated a net worth of about 800,000. That's how these numbers work out. Oh, okay, so we don't have enough time for this. I was gonna ask who wants to volunteer their scenario? Yeah, we don't have time for you. But yeah, I think that's all I got.
Thank you.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Has this at least
I think it's a
broadened
perfect model.
your?
Yes.
Sorry.
I think it's pretty much a perfect model.
It's hard to execute, but it's
Yeah.
possible.
I don't think it's that hard, and I don't think it's impossible.
I like the gusto.
I think it's very, very feasible. In particular, it's a
$1.2 million triplex here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
What's the average price, would you say, Matt? Like for a let's say a turnkey triplex, are you between 1 and 1.2 handy or no? Gonna be what range?
Like 1.3.
So
1.36?
yeah,
Yeah.
we're roughly. I mean, I'm using 1.2 right now as a proxy.
Yeah.
You can find it lower, you can find it higher. If it's lower, usually it's in not as good of a neighborhood and it needs renovations.
Yeah.
Or many other things.
Right.
If it's higher, then it could be turnkey, better locations, so on and so forth. So, we just had a client close on one. We got it for 1.35 triplex. Initially, the rents when he went to acquire it were 6,500. By the time he closed, a couple tenants moved in right away. He re-rented it and he's at 7,000 in rent. So
that's great.
Is it possible? We literally closed on
What area was that?
EO1.
No, west.
So St. Clair, Weston,
No.
St. Clair.
This was near Roncy.
What's that?
On Lansdowne.
Yeah.
It's a main street.
Okay, so that's like DuPont, Davenport area, or?
No.
Where's I don't know where that is.
Oh, Roncy?
Yeah.
To the south.
Okay.
So our primary areas would be Annex, too expensive, but Annex, Little Italy, Sea Village, Christie Pitts, Phil Thorwald's, Emerson, Trinity Bellwoods, Roncy, South Parkdale to a certain extent, High Park to a certain extent, but too expensive.
Right.
On the west. On the east, it's Riverdale North, Riverdale South, Leslieville, Riverside, East York. Plainer Estates is a little too expensive, but mainly along East York out to Coxwell. So those areas are primo. Like those are smaller works.
Right.
If you don't have as much capital and you're like, okay, well, I can only purchase 1 million instead of 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, we may need to revamp that and then look at, maybe along St. Clair. So yeah, I don't generally go up to like Weston, but St. Clair and Dufferin, so like Louder.
Yeah, I know you have like a certain tenant profile. So if someone's paying over $2,000 a month, I mean, they they have to be
Generally
like a little
speaking,
for
and that's
that.
why some of those areas we're starting to expand to as well. Along St. Clair, they have a dedicated streetcar line, right? So that functions a lot like an LRT, and all of the research points to LRT and subway as functioning, and the premiums being around them being similar. So dedicated streetcar line almost equals LRT, which almost equals subway, and you almost are getting the same premiums at a cheaper price point. So those properties are easier to cash flow, but they're not our typical A+++ type areas.
What would you say about like east towards like the beaches area, like Woodbine?
Yeah, that's expensive, isn't it?
No.
We find places.
Places.
Where's your triplex? Oh, so where's your fourplex?
Maybe like a detached house or bedroom.
Upper Beaches.
Pardon what?
Upper Beaches
Upper
fourplex.
detached.
So they do exist. You just need to know where you're looking.
Really?
Right?
Beaches areas actually.
This is our bread and butter. This is what we do. So we do this day in day out. So we know exactly what
Ten or
this is.
10.
No, I thought it was
Sorry.
detached.
Price appreciation, right? For these like triplexes, like when we think of commercial, like larger multi, like let's say mid-size, then like it's typically people look at it cap rates, right? Drives the overall value. But like for single families, it's usually because they're just it's like end user buying, prices typically go up based off like money, right? As opposed to say a cap rate. So when we're thinking about like these triplexes, these buyings like at least in Toronto, are they driven by like kind of similar appreciation based off of like the single family market, or are people looking at cap rates?
Not exactly a cap rate. So you're not wrong. Everything you said is correct. I'm just going to elaborate a bit further. So cap rates, generally speaking, are not applicable for 4 units and less. Typically, they are applied to, as you said, multifamily or commercial, larger, 5 units plus. There's a reason for that. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. Typically, properties within the 1 to 4 unit range, up to fourplexes, are typically priced based on comps, like you said. So like the single family market. That said, I can point to, I know in my head, this isn't written anywhere, but this is through observation. Roughly speaking, 1.2 million will get me $5,500 in rent. 1.35 million will get me $6,000 in rent. 1.5 million will get me $6,500 in rent. The idea is for every $500 of rent growth equals about $150,000 in price. So for every $1,000 of rent growth, it's roughly $300,000 in price, generally speaking. That's why I can point to certain properties and immediately know whether it's a good buy or not. So is it driven off the cap rate? No, not necessarily. But there's an element there that rents do point towards certain property prices. Is that fair? So right now, for example, I can go, okay, well, if my baseline is 1.2 million, $5,500 in rent, and I see a place for that rents for 7,500, I know it's of a certain quality. I know that it's probably renovated, it's probably on a wider lot, larger units, probably 2-bedroom units. It might, it's got some nice attributes in order to get that type of rent. That's why I can point to that and go 1.2 million, okay, $2,000 more, that's two $300,000 increments, roughly 1.8. And then 9 times out of 10, I'm very close. So it doesn't answer your question exactly. I know what your question is, and yes, I'd love to be able to say yes, it's driven off the cap rate, but it's not. I'd love to say it follows the price, like comparables method with single families, but it doesn't exactly either. It's a hybrid of the two.
I was thinking about like it can, in many ways, like you see some people that have transformed it back into like a single family, right? So then, in that case, then it is a better comp to.
If it's just a single family, it's just a single family.
Yeah.
Then whatever sold down the street is whatever is what I can think.
As opposed to like a purpose-built multi, there's nothing, you can't do anything back to change it. You can only say it's a multi-story.
Yes.
Instead of like a purpose-built home.
Most of these houses are purpose-built, single family properties.
Yeah.
These are old
Yeah.
houses, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like in those cases, our tribes or quads that were converted, they can potentially convert back into a single.
Generally they won't. People are buying these for its rent, for the rent agreement. Very, very few times do I see, unless it's a crappy triplex that's run down as hell, and it doesn't matter who's going to come in, they're going to do a major renter anyway.
Yeah.
Then they're transferring that back into a single family. Or if the floor plates, like for example in the annex, right? Some places on Markham Street or some of these places, giant former mansions that like president of U of T used to own it, sort of thing. Like we see those that have been chopped up into a whole bunch of units, but because of its location, you can't get any better with its location. So sometimes people do come in, even though it's transferred from formerly a single family into 4 units or 5 units or 6 units. Sometimes you do see, even if it's in half decent condition and rents would be really good and would be viable as an investment property, sometimes you see the odd person come back, wipe the slate clean, turn it back into a single family. But that's on a one-off basis. That's because of its location and because they want to be right there and meets all the criteria otherwise. Anything else? Is this fun? Did this thing die?
You mentioned your battery too. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I need a new battery.
So Matt,
Yeah.
how do we, like,
What do you do from here?
yeah, of course, one of the things that wasn't discussed was your partner, whether they are your business partner or your spouse. Usually you have one person that is, not worried about debt, they understand, how it works for them, but the other person is like terrified of debt and like, no, we can't, we're gonna be penniless or something like that. Like the fact that you brought up your wife, saying, why do we need more properties? Is like, you were being very nice about it, but I was just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I have that kind of a situation. But I think most investors, they'll be the one person that's really into it, and they're not being uh, negligent or whatever, but the other person just can't see it, and they're just like putting on the brakes like crazy. Yeah, so I've tried a lot. I've had men come to my house where I talk to my husband, but I don't know. It's still a work in progress, but
You have to remember, at the end of the day, your life partner is also your business partner. And at the end of the day, typically how it operates is, this doesn't sound bad, but
yeah,
lowest common denominator. It's like whatever the other person's comfortable with. And it's a tough thing.
yeah.
It's a negotiation, right? It's a negotiation of comfort level and importance and needs. You said you were a former
But
rank
no, I'm
member?
still a
Still
rank
a rank
member.
member?
But time's going by. Like for me, like 30 years down the road, I'm gonna be an old woman, right? Like for you guys, you're young, you'll still be,
I'm still gonna be an old man.
half decent age, condition, or whatever. But like for me, at this point, I think I'm now looking for joint venture partners, people who probably are in the same situation as I am.
No.
And wants to go forward.
Those are the wrong partners.
No, like I mean, they want to go forward, but so they have money, I have money, but we have someone pulling us back. I don't know. Like
I would say those are not the right partners.
that's not the right person.
The best partners, and I mean
So I need to find someone where both of them are like go go go. How do you find those people?
So
That are go 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 go.
So what it comes down to is, so like I said, typically if you in a life partner situation, it's whatever, like both people have to be on board. It's the same way in a joint venture partnership. One person says no, then it's a no go. Similarly, in a life partner situation, it's exactly the same. So your wife, your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever, is essentially your joint venture partner, right? You have to think of it in those terms. And
But they
that's
don't understand, and they don't seem to want to understand. That puts
so
that holds you back.
yeah. So I mean, it can be
I
through
like it.
it can be through education. It can be through alignment of goals,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things I said right at the beginning was, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve? Is he trying to achieve the same thing as you? Is the goal the same?
He's very comfortable with just having a pension and just living just on a pension from his work.
So
I'm
then
not.
your goals aren't even aligned.
Yeah.
So which means everything that follows is also not going to be aligned.
But
And it's not a bad thing. It just means it's a negotiation, right? It's a negotiation.
Oh, what if the pension is not there anymore? Because that can easily happen. CPP pensions, any of that stuff is gone.
no, like my husband is talking about his work pension.
Yeah, but
Government.
they can go too.
No, but he has, a good pension. But the the thing is like he's very happy to live on just a couple $1,000s a month.
Yeah.
Or I'm not. Like definitely I'm not gonna have a full pension.
Yeah, because his life was, that's the way he was raised, that's the way he lived his life. My wife's the same.
Yeah.
She, like raised to work, have a job,
Yeah.
and work for somebody.
Yeah.
Because that's how her father,
Yeah.
But
or I'm the
I mean,
opposite.
to answer your question, like you may never be able to convince him, and maybe that's okay, because maybe you can still achieve what you want to achieve,
Yeah.
and he wants to achieve, he wants to be able to
No.
achieve, and you aren't doing it together, or you're kind of doing it independently. Maybe that's okay. And doing it independently means that you might need and probably will need joint venture partners. And your joint venture partner should not be in the same boat as you. Your partner should, you need to sit down, take stock of your strengths and your weaknesses, and you need to find someone who shores up your weaknesses and where your strengths shore up their weaknesses. So for example, if you found another person like you, go-getter, how far is that going to get you? If both of you have money but no one has mortgage qualification, or both of you are raring to go and excited, but both of you have partners who don't want to move forward. That's not a partnership. That's a partnership that's going to fail. What you're looking for is someone who wants to invest in real estate, doesn't have time, doesn't have the know-how, has money, has mortgage qualification, but just can't execute without you. And you have the know-how, you have a demonstrated track record, you can show your success, you can show your business model, you can show exactly what it is that you're going to do, how you're going to make the money, how you've identified all your risks, how you've mitigated those risks. Now you're presenting them with a business plan, with an opportunity. I never begged for money. Back in the days when I used to raise capital, I got to the point where I had a joint venture partner literally willing and ready to write me a $7-figure check. And actually I said no. It didn't align with my life, my goals, and my plan. I was already on my path. I said thank you, it's appreciated, but no need. No, like, and by all stretches, I would have had another 25, 50 doors, another 10 property, whatever that might equate to.
Yeah.
But I took stock, so I was kidding, I did have goals, but I took stock of where I wanted to be. I took stock of like my path to get there, and I was already on my path. I didn't need to deviate. I didn't need to go chase the shiny object. Right? So that's why I'm saying like the whole
You could be a lender, so a straight lender on, whatever rate you, if it's
yeah.
reasonable, 7 figures coming in.
Yeah,
You can't qualify, you can make that.
yeah, I mean, there's tons of ways for me to work with. I just started learning the model, and it, like, again, something doesn't come for nothing, which means joint venture partner. Which means I have a shitload of accountability now, right? Like, I would have had to trust my hand in terms of the quarterly reports, performance. I've got to track everything to the nth degree. It's a big deal. Right? So right now I run this portfolio. I know how it's doing. I don't need to prove it to anyone. But once I take that money, my accountability, it's a whole different world. And I've been in that world before, and I didn't necessarily like it. It wasn't for me. And I didn't need it anymore. It helped me get started. I didn't need it anymore.
I think it depends on your leverage. Like I do have a joint venture partner, I have a couple properties in Springfield. You probably know him. And, I'm very happy, but I want to continue to have joint partnerships with other people. My idea is, what I'm looking for is people who are interested in doing as much as you can and going as far as you can, even if that means 3 or 4 people working together as joint ventures on a project. Like whatever you need to do, just
Or
keep moving forward.
so what I was saying before, it's not entirely correct. But for example, if you were to change your asset class, maybe you and this other go-getter with some money, you do pool it together, and you get into larger multifamily, business qualification, you put your money together, and that's your seed capital. The mortgage qualification is based upon the property, not on you.
So how would you do that, change your asset classification then? Is that
So for
just
example,
refinancing your properties, leaving your properties as they are?
So if you were to buy, for example, the apartment building instead of single family, now you're into commercial financing. So commercial financing, totally different ballgame, but they don't look at you necessarily.
Right.
They look at the property, the performance of the property. So now you have an opportunity to still get financing. You said you have some money, the other person has some money. And maybe you find 2 others, and now you can get into a 20 plus. Right? So there's always solutions. There's always solutions to problems. You might not like potential solution. It might not be ideal,
Yeah.
or it might not be your first choice, but maybe it's
That means
the
all
way
three
forward.
towers. 90% of all
So
three
there's
towers
a
have
whole
to be
bunch of
solar.
Are you 100% sure?
there's
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it all
I
three
think the
towers?
hardest
All three towers.
90%?
part I find
Three of the
is
5 towers
Yeah.
looking
are
for
defined as a project.
all of that
What
on
about
my own,
3? So is
rather
it be
than
solar and capped?
working
Has to be
within a group
I guess
where
the
people
roof
just come
has to be
together.
No, so
Because
You gotta attract
my
it.
tower
You
has
gotta
to
be
be
a
capped.
magnet.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you must have
90%
heard
of the
all
3
of
towers have to
Russell
be solar.
Westcott
Okay, well
stuff,
that's not
right?
PV.
yeah,
Right?
I think that
Well, they usually
Figure
hold
how he
that
does it.
last 10%
I was a
free.
student of Russell
So you
Westcott.
still,
Right? I
so,
didn't know how to
so
do it.
regardless,
Yeah,
I
my building has to be
literally
completely sold.
followed.
The next
I was a
building has to
student.
be
He was like my
fairly
mentor.
completely sold, and
Yeah.
the last building
I
will have
figured
to
out
be
what
Yeah,
he
sold.
for you,
did. I
yeah, for
copied,
you,
right?
So it's not
He
even the next to
was
impossible.
well,
A
Joe
building
yeah.
site maybe an
I
occupancy.
was
yeah,
located
actually,
in
you
the
know
middle
what's
of
scary
whatever.
about this?
Yeah.
You were
Had an
worst case
Ewok.
scenario.
That was an
Yeah.
Ewok.
A
Right?
lot of developers are holding back right now.
So
It's
that's
holding
what you
back
gotta do.
because
I did it. I literally remember which coffee shop I used to sit at
they're not trying to sell.
studying
They're
his
not trying to make
materials.
this next project.
I literally remember
Things are going
the
up so fast. It's
well, there's another
condos
group,
are
Tiffany,
condos
Corey
is
and
okay,
Tiffany Young.
to be honest, but
They have a good,
it's still not great. But that's why
they
you don't
role
see
play
massive
this whole
increases,
thing
except
up on stage,
like Kings.
and it's a
But
whole conversation
Yeah, so
that's
that's
an
per
anomaly.
meeting
that's
because
not right.
You look
he
at it, it's
pretends to
like
be a potential
even the
you
floor
know,
plans
yeah.
for.
You know why? It's like
study these things. I literally,
it's like
well,
it's
maybe
like
not anymore, but there's a point I could literally recite that entire thing, and that my goal was to get all my conversations flowing as smoothly as their
So it's
so
natural,
it's
yeah,
actually like
yeah.
I did it. I could probably create one similar right
and
now,
that value
but that's how I got to the point where I was attracted to the capital. And like, I mean, there's so many people in this room who were like, "Oh my God, we should create a coalition REIT." Like even in this room, there's still
Create a what?
Like a
money,
Witch King. Like
Oh,
the
REIT, okay.
the funds.
Yeah.
Even in this room,
King last time.
there's people who are willing to still put capital for
King's Landing is
finally.
I'm talking about the one.
Don't talk to me, talk to them.
Isn't that like the big something
So, like it's not gonna
name
until it gets to the point where
the guys who just put on the
tracks.
There's a BIG.
They're
So anyway,
They keep it adds like something big
Lucas,
that's coming to King West.
yeah. So they're the developers
for
of
your
Shanghai World Trade Centers.
Oh, okay, yeah, they're the same developers, yeah.
I've
But
been
it's like premium too. Like you're not gonna buy that for an investment so much as
they're not
you could.
perfect.
I think it's
If you
cool.
want an example, talk to Jason.
I think it's cool.
I think it's cool. I can afford it. And also, like,
One of the guys here who buys fourplex, he just
I
he
think
just
it's very good for
reveals
it if the prices were like,
It's like
if it was like, the size of like condos. And I'd pay
oh yeah, he
40%
just
because I have
like
half the money.
parents who
it's like
pay
right now
were
it's
paying
insane.
their
One
rent,
bedroom is like
and they're just like
not
still
that much.
even though
It's like 900K.
they're still not
YSL
very
is okay.
What's that?
so
YSL is really
not really fully adults. In a
It's
lot of
okay.
ways, you're
It's like
babysitting
young.
people because you're checking out.
Like it's right across the street from
So is it perfect?
but
No.
it's
Even in my
already, to be honest, I
fourplex,
didn't actually like that project.
I live in one unit.
I think
I
Shreveport is
rented
probably
to
the
three.
best location project.
It's much longer.
So I think like getting it was
Anyway,
deposit structure
we have a
wise.
house that's being renovated.
Trying to buy a
in
condo to
King
live
Falls
in now.
now. It's like
And like
Ireland. We're going through COA. Our tenants have filed for appeal. We're doing.
well, I had
So it's like a 600
Jazz showed up with a down payment.
And they're
Where you live now? Fireplace.
No,
Finance.
new house in Montreal.
Oh, okay. Like
We're
I was
just
like everything was moving
delayed,
too fast.
delayed,
The
delayed.
financing it.
Anyway,
And
but
banks are
like
coming back and
it's
saying they
still
want
I have them on a schedule for garbage, and they still forget.
whatever I could afford.
Like it's not perfect. It's just generally better than anything else. And it's
Exactly. It was like basically
all
open for
lifers,
just going.
and
And that was like 20%. Banks were starting to come back
train
and
them.
saying 21%, 22%. I don't have the extra
You
1%.
train them like,
Or the
hey,
extra 1%.
rent's not paid on this
And at the
first
same
month.
time, there was enough offers, the market was moving up that
Right? It
if
goes
you
up.
put
You
it
have to
into
give and
financing,
know
they
which
should
month's
take
not
your offer.
actual payment.
So I just
So it's perfect. No, it's not perfect.
I was there, but
The
I
point is I'm
wasn't.
just trying to mitigate this.
So
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Is
was
it
like
less headache
a few
for
months
you?
too late.
In my opinion, it's less headache
Same
than
thing at
all the
PG.
other options.
Was it you or did you just break
And
up
it's
your Oh yeah, so it was similar to I was gonna buy
yeah,
in
yeah, no,
December.
of course.
I wasn't sure what I was gonna do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
That finally broke up the cable, so I
Finally
didn't
started.
even
Oh, you looked
record.
into it.
I'm still
Yes.
working on it.
Yeah. Well, we,
It's
to
not
be
perfect.
honest, next year we'll probably see a big
If you
adjustment.
take
Okay, adjustment.
a loss on a negative cash flow,
Like, even if
100K
you're
loss,
before that,
and a
because
negative
they honestly have a massive
property tax
the
insurance,
interest rate
you pay
is
$1,000 a month.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So it's like
There's no
opportunity
taking
time
your
to
loss
together.
and start all over
And
somewhere
I'm
else.
talking, I think the
Or would
perfect
you
time is
wait it out?
early February, February.
Depends on your prospects. What do you foresee for
I don't think it's gonna be huge.
East Bloomberg.
Well, you're talking about condos or
They're lowering
houses?
their prices.
Houses,
Yeah.
condos.
I'm not in the house market anymore.
No, I would
I've
say
officially removed
yeah.
myself.
My
That'll be
cost
Sugarmore.
like
Condos,
50K
for
more.
condos, I would say.
So then your problem is
So
not only do you have to
It's kind
overcome
of weird
this.
like that because like
yeah, and the negative cash
high
flow too.
condos, anything above 930,
Not
for
all,
example,
not all of them.
not moving.
Yeah.
I've made
Weird, actually
I've
moving
made
very, very
mistakes.
little.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to
Just
get
because
I'm still trying to get my
for example,
capital out of banks to
1,000 square feet plus, the
right?
other side.
I should I've done
Even
things.
though it's 2 bedroom, for example,
Nice
two
meeting
plus
you
10.
too. I hope we
You
found
only have
this
2 bedrooms though. The den doesn't go down. Doesn't actually
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I see you so many
And
times.
you
I
have
never
to
see you.
figure out how to say it. That condo,
Newbie.
yeah, it's like $700.
So you want
Just
the
$600
smallest unit possible with as many It's just enough to
Exactly.
still be livable.
Yeah.
Without any of this garbage.
Have you guys seen Fight
Yeah.
Club?
No.
You guys are.
Or like something like that
You
that
ever seen
makes
Fight
the
Club?
living room marginally bigger,
What's wrong with you?
but not usably bigger.
Right.
But then your square feet.
And like that $700 translates
You haven't
more
seen
like
Fight Club, let's
$20,000
go.
to $30,000
Anyway,
technically.
the
Actually,
beginning part
every year.
is that this
That
guy
you may or may not even
he's
get
a
back
junkie
yourself.
Right.
for these different groups. So he,
like,
no,
I was actually
no, he goes to like AA
1,300
meetings
square
and he
feet.
goes to like
Oh.
he goes to like
Bathurst.
yeah, you guys are gonna go
Make
to all
sure.
these meetups.
Yeah.
So you know, like the February areas.
Anyway,
Yeah,
How am I gonna
nice
use
area.
it?
There's a new
no,
property
but
up there.
anyway,
I think it's up
hopefully
and
you
coming.
found this
Like it's
interesting.
alright.
If you want to chat further,
Developers
let
on Oni,
Chris
they're pretty good.
know,
Okay.
and then he will.
It's they wanted like 1.1 in the beginning. It wasn't
No,
possible.
at the
Tried dropping down to
well, I
1.
said at the beginning.
Still not moving. Yeah, I'm
Anyway,
thinking of buying over like 9.
people are interested in understanding where they're going for sure.
But just like it's the condo fees are too much and
Nice
it's
meeting
too big for 2 bedrooms.
Good to see you.
But I think right now
Yeah.
you'll see lots of
I'm looking at the audience, and everyone's faces are just
anything
like,
like 500K.
I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
know what this looks like.
Can you even buy that range? I mean, it's, can you even get that
No,
range?
two bedrooms. You can get one for
1%,
no,
less
two
than
bedrooms you can
1%
get for like
of everybody would even think of that.
7
5
to 8.
right?
Oh no,
It's
no,
very
5 to
high.
6 a couple.
Less than 5
Yeah.
people are
7 to 8 you can get
property,
it.
period. And then out of those 5, maybe one would actually be
Large studio.
Yeah.
Basically to answer a question I don't have.
You technically probably get a studio for like 450, 480.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah.
if I can get like
That's what I need right now. Just to
Yeah.
add to the wall pros.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same size, but there's a wall.
I can tell you right now, to show you one nice place. At the same time, like I don't live in good tenants. I bought my own place a long time ago, so I didn't have much money. 5 years, I think that's how it was up. It's like 1,000 square feet.
Pretty
And that's a
interesting.
great someone else to clean it, but sometimes I'm just gonna clean it for a while and it still gets dirty. So I'm thinking about this.
So it's kind of like
Sure. You rinse them tenants.
I knew it was good. I knew it was one of the perfect spreadsheet.
Right now,
I'm following all the spreadsheets.
Sell my place. Have it pay off.
There you go.
Usually most my guy has. You get yourself a condo.
No, I had
So
We'll watch those play out.
huge. So, see, like this is shit. I actually like, I do complain. It's just that so the issue with me is that started with like Lake.
Well,
Pretty small town.
That's why I mind. That's what I'm wondering. Like, you just take the six-figure loss.
I would.
Would you?
After a while, I
Okay,
understand.
Well, you got started.
sorry,
Once you're five,
here's
why
the
would
question.
you if you're paid off now?
You
Yeah.
exit
A
this,
lot of times
what do you do?
Okay, so my
You can
two
guarantee
seventy-five, that is
I'm fine, but
would become one
I technically haven't
So I
gone
paid
for
the
it.
one seventy-five.
Yeah.
Most people,
One of these
I know
drive
have
plans, that's what
I know very few people who have.
Yeah.
They bought for the wrong reasons.
What would you do if you had,
175,
let's say two,
750.
200
A future?
200?
Yeah.
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 Oh my god.
Yeah, but this, your whole trust they qualify for this one with a negative tax rate.
So I had.
Okay, so let's assume you qualify for
It
maybe
was like it's. I
200.
can't imagine. Like,
Means you can
because
buy
I got here
something
to
for
25.
yes.
Because
Buy something for a
probably
million?
when I bought it, it was like 250,000.
Okay.
Yeah, to
So
make up
my
that
down
loss.
payment was nothing.
I'm trying to make up that like somehow.
$1,000.
You're not gonna make it back.
No, not that, but to that, you know, the fastest way to get to that point.
Bring it back up. In my opinion,
So,
you
that's the only reason why.
play with scenario one.
Yeah, push that button.
Play with scenario two.
It's the same mentality.
What do you do? Compare those two scenarios.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it.
You can kind of
So,
where
you see down this path, you're gonna have to make some assumptions. So, yeah, it's like this, how long is it doing this?
Could be, probably 3-4 years.
Then model this
it
scenario.
makes sense. Like whatever it is.
And what's happening in this
A
scenario.
lot of sense. Yeah, I'm
I
actually.
mean,
I'm trying to
you're talking to someone who's biased.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think that somewhere in downtown Toronto, even though it's reached peak pricing from last year and it's stayed fairly flat from there, it's looking at the prospects here in Toronto.
Well, like, what about, this is like a triplex. Why would they need room?
Yeah,
Let me.
so I understand.
Triplex, then I have to like split a house in three.
So buy a triplex.
Yeah, does that mean?
Oh.
Three.
I mean, you live with people who are alone, but you don't have room.
I actually understand.
Like, that's.
Because even though I teach this stuff and it implies, sit down with all these clients and talk with your
I'm not at this point where I
I'm
make a
still
mistake yet, so I'm putting it off.
hesitant.
But like, fully I might accept the lower return
I feel your pain.
for the
I'm
fact
gonna do the exact
that
same
I
thing.
can watch TV or jump up and down.
So I'm tired of
There's no one above me who will do it.
Well, I think what you guys, it's the
Situation.
situation. I think there's no.
Well, I don't think it's gonna be worth it for me to live in it. 100% probably. By the time it's ready, it's not gonna be worth what rent is for me to live in it.
I think that'd be later.
It's like, you know,
Like if you don't get a place, you don't get a place
here,
that's
you're
fine.
like,
I
whoa,
would live
shit.
in that.
Whoa,
Airbnb.
issue.
Okay, great. There's no Airbnb
I
price.
just wanted to thinking like
In the contract.
so short term.
How they have definition.
So just
They have parts of what's gonna be in it. They don't have the decoration. They have certain aspects like they have bedrooms, stuff like that. Things that because if you don't have that in the contract design, you can't enforce it on the initial original owner at time of closing.
But then they can make a bylaw
Obviously,
afterwards.
Yeah, but then you can argue as you go over and not get grandfathered. That's what happens a lot.
But not for Airbnb initially. It's that concept is not out Airbnb.
So if you bought it thinking you were going to Airbnb it,
Your number up there.
because I thought it was on turnover, that it was mandatory.
I think you'll overcome.
Especially all these existing condos.
So relaxing is not already
Yeah, but there are a lot of putting in bylaws.
Yes.
My understanding that the bylaws that are going in.
Now you have to push it out.
It's not grandfather and you.
Maybe we drop the price of like,
Okay.
next.
I know things for pets and smoking for sure. I thought it was for Airbnb. Well, yeah, so I'm gonna live in it regardless of capital gains. So I realize I want to realize that's my primary residence for 5 years, so I don't pay capital gains.
I mean, that's probably gonna be most to up in a while.
Well, yeah, but after that, I think
Other stuff that is.
Oh yeah, you want to keep that as a rental property for a while.
depends on where I work too, right? Because right now I work in Markham. I'm doing. So he was talking about like the cost of living uptown and commuting down. I'm literally the opposite. So I live downtown, I pay the downtown premium, and I pay the commuting costs.
You live downtown right now too, right?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I live in
lifestyle,
and I
right?
go all the way to Markham.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was so I'm making a double premium. And you spend more than 22 hours
I
trying
was
to
gonna
get
say,
it.
pretty cheap condo.
But it's not that I went to
I'm just saying, like, you could diversify that, like,
and I was
it's
saying
like,
like Richmond Hill, Markham.
It happens. I should have.
I mean, it works for some. I'm not convinced I'm not convinced that real estate right now isn't in its own bubble. And if there's a correction, for instance, family, where you raise $2,500 after that, I don't think that core downtown I think at most it will plateau.
Exactly.
Everyone will just lose their jobs, but like the core will still have.
No, I agree, I agree. I mean, like, you need
Yeah,
to
that's
this
what
bubble,
I'm
like,
saying,
you're only
like,
a bubble for
like,
We need help with and it goes back to this, set up something in the neighborhood, you need help exiting this property in order to be able to put in something
your
else.
losses are probably gonna be
We can
very
help you
massive.
exit this.
At this point, I'm now what I'm buying is probably just
We
gonna be
also
where I'm
looked at
living.
area, we just listed one.
It is gonna be where I'm living.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if you're working in Markham, that's what for a while.
I'm renting right now. I could have been renting there. It would be, I'd have an extra $800 in my pocket, $1,000 in my pocket every month. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I should live in Markham and work there. So like, I should be doing a lot of things.
So maybe buy a small convention that you can own in good area too, where you can maybe take over two or whatever. And hopefully you're budget to stay 2 mortgages.
Well, I don't know if it's okay with Sugar Wharf, or the deal's supposed to break ground kind of, they haven't even gotten that approval yet. It's a 77-story tower, it's their first tower, they have to sort out, it's not like they have to mobilize their equipment. Oh yeah, they're out of the document, they rent like it's not in their best interest to do that, obviously. But I mean, from first occupancy 2020, because I showed, I can't even remember.
2022.
I think it was
40.
Yeah,
end of 2022.
Was it 2022?
Oh, maybe 23, maybe 23.
Whatever it was, I took that occupancy. So like,
I didn't know it was actually that.
in some regard, my money will grow without having my mortgage. That's fine. But I need to make sure I don't do any reconstruction that conflicts with that closing. But I also, at first I was like, maybe, whatever, and I should flip in 2023. That's probably not gonna happen. It's probably gonna be 2024, 2025.
I would say 20.
I might as well buy something I'm essentially good to stay permanently. I think if I have to sell it, Sugar Wharf, I will, but I don't think I would by that time.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you won't be able to do it. So I'm gonna for another 4 or 5 years. I like to have conditions there. So yeah, condos right now, they're something 300.
Well, like a year or something, but it's not.
It's actually more. Is it? Yeah, I think it's more. I personally think so. Especially with the situation, like when you're selling at $1,200, $1,500 in an area that right now is selling for $1,000, like 800 to 9,000 square feet.
That's why Sugar Wharf seemed pretty good. It seemed
Approximately similar, slightly higher. So right now, that area, I think that area where Sugar Wharf was selling for
So yeah, understanding
there's a difference.
allows
So
us
you
to
But I mean,
only predicts one step ahead.
in 10 years,
One step is
yeah,
to get
it's
capital.
$1,100.
So, yeah, that is.
Regardless of conditions, it's
Because I did the
at the same time, I believe that Toronto is the core hub for mailbox.
Yeah, that's what that is, right? That's why I know Marco knows it pretty well too, especially where my office is, where that road is coming out. So like your
Yeah.
but it's Cineplex is
Yeah,
Marco's
yeah.
office.
Well, they zero.
It's doing pretty well, but at the same time,
Yeah, you know how I see it, it's like,
I
you
think
look at
and
Manhattan,
then once
you can have $1 billion condos,
and
right?
then run out here,
$2 million units, or like even just banks renting units,
yeah,
very high rent. Like your rent for a 1 bedroom is gonna be like over $3,000. For a 1 bedroom.
yeah,
Right? Yeah, so Toronto or small New York, we're gonna get to that stage eventually. But you actually look at the suburbs of New York, Queens and Bronx, whatever else, like outside of New York,
eventually.
you know, you can buy a house for like 40
Yeah, if your goals were not just net worth, but also
obviously Toronto is there. You might make 300K over to get this. Maybe shot it, I didn't fuck up.
You can buy some pretty
Yeah, I know Janet Finch would probably get some pretty sick. I'll be honest with you, right? But like,
if you go right to Dundas.
yeah, we might get like step on a needle and die.
You just go right to steel toe on the full.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't think our rural area prices make sense.
Well, now. That's why I think it's so sad. Like everyone around is either old and you don't even want to live, or younger and don't want to live. So either people are thinking of like wouldn't live in a farm because they don't know anything or because let's be honest, if you're gonna live in a condo, like either you get a house. Markham's is weird. It's like you don't have the space. It's a condo, but everyone wants to be doesn't mind living in a condo, wants to live in a condo.
Yeah.
So either they can't afford it and they're living in Markham's for that, or they just do what I'm doing. Like a lot of my coworkers are living in Markham.
Right.
You just
So,
work from home as much as possible.
no, I do that too. Like, I actually have like Facebook side. I know. I think there's like after cancellation New York, I kind of actually like I had like cancellation remorse, buyer's remorse. I was just like, my feelings are getting so mumbo jumbo. What the hell?
That was one of those feelings that Sam mentioned that they increased the prices on artworks, the Renaissance units by $30,000. They still have some left, but they increased the price.
Bastards.
By 30,000.
Well, we were warned about that, right? Isn't it go up, I think, like 50 to 75 a square foot?
But like they're still available. This isn't the next phase of sale.
Yeah. No regrets.
Oh no, I can't afford it. I couldn't. But
That's
like
why
for
we
me
need
to
to
keep
get us
it,
the one beds or the two
for me to
beds.
keep it was like super
Yeah.
stretching the realms of possibility for figuring things out.
Yeah. I'm
In
still on
3
the
years.
primary residence thing right now.
Yeah, I actually did put a thing down. I returned it.
Which one? 3-bedroom?
The 3 bedroom. Because there was a lot of for me. For you, it wasn't.
Well, I couldn't figure it out.
For you can figure it out. For me, it was like really pushing.
No, but I mean, I could find like a partner. So I have equity in my properties. Like,
But like worst case scenario, you can close
I
it.
could.
Yeah.
You
You could find a partner and it would be better. But
That's my
like
plan.
because you.
That's what cash flow is gonna happen. It's very
That's
rich.
cash flow.
Partner, lawyer, some crazy signer, whatever.
But like right now, you do have enough cash flow that you could get back to zero if you could close
Well,
it.
I'm trying to refinance now, so I'll get to like zero cash flow again.
Okay.
But I don't know if I really want to buy something like that now because I'm worried about risk. Like Horizon. Because I could and just go keep on doing it, but I'm just slightly hedging of what should I do now with that thing?
Yeah, now that you took it out.
I'm slightly.
Could you not like refinance as like a HELOC instead and then just like
Yeah,
when the capital's there as soon as you need it?
Because some of them are, you know.
Well, like you have it now.
The
you
point
can catch my
being
action and
is
just
that
put it in
not thinking
some sort of
in terms of,
investment vehicle.
oh, this is my hat, this is my
Yeah, that's true.
But like, I'm
Interest rates.
just concerned of like, do I
contribute Toronto, or should I
Yeah.
go outside of Toronto for
Start with
like better
what is
cash
Mount
flow?
Pleasant
But
achieve?
maybe
Right,
you're
right.
What's that number?
You're gonna need cash
Yeah.
flow for
Well, for now, it's
I
it's
know,
gonna be
but
that.
He's bought into the
I mean,
model.
ultimately,
no,
yeah.
but like
Okay.
like
It's true though, right?
But it's true, look, my parents bought in Chatham, like I think I talked
Yeah,
to you.
it-
They get a really good
Another thing
cash
that
flow
they talk
Is
about.
it?
in Chatham.
Basically,
In low income
China.
housing.
Really?
It's a real
10 years ago, I was like, man, it must be.
it's a real headache, but they're getting a really good cash flow. So their assets practically depreciated.
And
Yeah.
so you're
Right.
saying like it's flatline or
I
like
could
just
have reached 20
inflation?
later.
They bought it because they're
But I
close to
would
retirement.
rather
They
take
want
it-
cash flow.
take
Well, 'cause
10
So they can't. They
That's
didn't want
true.
Toronto because they don't have time to
Those
wait
types
for
of
the
things,
appreciation
sure,
to
I'm
play
willing
the
to
game.
sacrifice this and now take
But like,
zero cash
but that's what I
flow
mean. What do you need cash flow
until
for?
bam.
Yeah, it's true. I don't need it now.
And
It's
now I
true.
live off of
Yeah,
that.
and I think it was scale
That's
too,
personal
because like
decision.
if
You
I
need to
imagine
decide that
imagine
what's
10
the
houses
right
for
idea.
300,000 or something,
Yeah,
like
true.
I would just die.
And then you're like,
I
you got
can't.
something
So
way out over there.
it's a
you
lot of
got
work. I
something-
know you guys.
I know, you're right.
You know the beaches.
Yeah, it's
You'd
just
be
like,
like, when you have rentals, I'll be like, oh, you don't like this one. Let me show you the other one in my other house across the street. This is.
Well, actually, I was like
Seriously.
considering like I was trying to end up like maybe
Depending on
like
the
member,
money, so
like
like
in my riverside, like hey, can I buy
yeah,
because
people
my
like
house is like pretty simple, but if I could like combine the two presentations,
You will.
We've been able to.
but like I'm not at that level yet.
Decently
I don't know how
Because
Rent's
at that
great,
point,
yeah.
you get it when the op period comes up. And then even when you want to sell it, you sell it when you be like combined sale.
Yeah,
Because at that point, you know, there'll be someone who'll be like, oh yeah, we can combine those two houses.
Yeah.
Real,
that's true.
Yeah.
it'll be like a
I
Winnie
think
and
Toronto's
Winnie
are like nicely spotted.
and a property couple. There'll be someone like that who'll be like, yeah, we'll take it.
But I feel like the debt today done enough that they also my credibility that people really like private lending money to be like, hey, I'll take this and then I'll get like
I mean, what do you want to use?
Well, you don't. The thing is, you don't have to do it right away. You just now have the option in your back pocket. And worst case scenario, you sell it as a joint sale for someone else who wants to do it, and they'll still pay as long as
I know. Because that area, like the land value is like my property tax went up a lot. Like in terms of percentage, not dollars. I think like went
The
up.
only ones like that I think you would take is like the huge scams, I think.
Cool.
They have
Well,
like
good
so
luck.
they don't
You
mind
can,
bigger.
if you want to chat
Yeah,
further,
anyways, how are you doing? Like I haven't talked to you in a while.
Selling
Like,
like
I
$3
feel like
million
it's kind of
good,
felt
like I
exhausting.
actually
Like I just
it's only
left
$1
you.
million contract.
Yeah, I haven't.
It's like not a big deal.
he will be off.
Yeah,
For everybody else it is.
a lot of things that
You're not always gonna be able
for
to.
Christmas.
Oh yeah,
Anything at Christmas in India, I haven't even got my flight yet. I don't have to, but like relatives are coming from like London and Australia.
Continue to run.
And like both sides of the family for different events.
I think you should probably
show
go.
up. So I know 100% should go.
You should.
I just haven't figured out how I'm going. So I haven't booked my flights or anything.
Ooh, where are you going?
India. And I might be doing Everest Base Camp if I can fit
Oh
that.
man, do it. Send me a pic.
When are you going?
We were just talking about that. I haven't actually got a chance to sit and look at when I can feasibly go.
Like in the next few months?
No, in summer.
Okay, that's fine. Like you're gonna go.
Yeah.
You just pay a lot for the ticket.
Yeah.
I appreciate you appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah,
like,
this was
what's not
like,
going to impact work as
I was working on it
There's a few
today.
catastrophes
I
at
think
work.
this one is half approved, I just because
And sometimes just to go like screw work, like.
I know.
And you how much vacation do you have left for this year?
Mine,
They'll be
15
like, we'll start
15 weeks?
Yeah, my vacation.
Yeah.
Also.
If you ever leave, you're gonna pay out so much.
So maybe it's all paid up per year.
I probably not for a couple of months. He says
Well,
that.
that's why I was like, when he
No,
leaves, you
so
don't have to.
different companies will have different policies. What they can't do is take it away.
No, they can't.
So what they
I know
can
that
do is
he's
say,
still gonna work here and there.
they say you need
Or
to
not-
use your
not completely-
vacation.
completely off. Maybe for the
And
first
even
season,
then, if they don't, if
then
it's
after that,
actually up to them, if the onus is on them to make you take vacation.
Yeah.
If you don't go on vacation, and at the end of the year they realize they told you to go on vacation but you didn't, they still can't get rid of your vacation. They have to say, okay,
my parents.
you're on vacation
Yeah,
for
parents
these 2
used to live
weeks.
out of the country. They didn't live in
They actually have
Canada,
to tell you that you
Seinfeld.
are now on
And so,
vacation.
yeah, it would be
As long as they give you
country
2 weeks
roads,
notice for your
comfortable
vacation,
club.
Oh.
and they tell you to take more than 1 week at a time, they
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please.
Then if you show up to work, they can say, but you're on vacation. Or,
Who would do that though? That's weird. Like.
yeah,
Like,
but the thing is that most people ask me is like, if you don't use it, can't you lose it? And I was like, well, no. You can't.
It's like a, it's a liability at the book.
So
I would, as their accounting department, I would be like, there's a huge.
like this guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the funny thing is, I'm also in charge of finding some gross margin and revenue improvement. So
You're like, hey, let me go on
yeah.
3-month vacation.
Well, the thing is, I get overtime, and I usually go on vacation on overtime.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Well, maybe you get the money instead then. So.
So yeah,
Yeah. Table goes back in the middle.
Table moves.
Okay.
I'll go there.
It goes like this.
Oh, long way. Okay.
It's a long way.
Watch out, we.
Oh yeah, center's over into these, right? Yeah, center's over the. Yeah, you're more.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Good enough.
Okay. And just kind of plug in some stuff.
I just plug in some stuff.
No, because before I unplugged internet connection, I'm like, oh, okay, don't put it.
It was really hard to unplug, right?
No, because you gotta finish that.
Really? That's so funny.
Yeah, there's a little thing over here, right? That you have to.
Precisely 26 by the end.
Oh, because they wanted an extra percent. I thought.
Yes, and I was just like,
That looks fancy.
what this actually didn't really make sense. I didn't want all my overtime.
That was the tough part about that one.
It was a great place. And I think 900,000 square feet.
So it's jumped. Do you know what it is now?
Yeah, of course. But yeah, these projects,
So basically, it's like you just wrote him $150,000 check.
yeah.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that that's where you got the units.
Yeah.
I'd like that check in cash, please.
Yeah, you seem like
Well, some people
you're good to go.
Yeah.
Hang on, I think some of them came from the meeting room. Is it Paul over there?
Now I want to find somewhere to place to live.
Ooh, chicken nuggets.
Man, McDonald's app really sucks. Does anyone know how to code? I'm sure
Look
they
at me, man.
pay a handsome sum.
You're more of an engineer than I am.
I do project management. They didn't give me my PM.
Maybe
Do you have your PM?
I never worked as an engineer. I worked in marketing right out of school. Product management, product development.
What got you into this?
I accidentally bought a fourplex.
Oh man, I thought this was a single family home.
What? What is this?
What are these doors?
How do I get to the second floor? Like from inside.
I don't have to walk outside every time I get to my.
Yeah, that's awesome though.
So yeah, I accidentally bought my first fourplex, and I literally, from like day one, got addicted to rent checks.
Yeah, rent checks are fantastic. Like, I do like actually I used to do Airbnb rentals, like got rid of the house property.
Yeah.
So I just managed to like go proper percentage.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fantastic. Like I'm collecting. I think I got like I don't know how many post agents, 50, 60 post agents. I said they have like 300,000.
I got addicted to rent checks, and actually this is back when property prices were lower, obviously. So I bought my first fourplex. I lived in actually the nicest unit, and I was still cash flow positive.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So I was getting paid to live. Not only was I living for free, I was actually being paid to live. But since I've refinanced it so many times that it's now not, it doesn't pay me to live anymore. But I've used that equity and grown.
larger, so that's like what I should have done.
Hey, there's never, no time like the present.
Hey, I've been sitting on cash for the past several years.
Yeah.
Last Christmas party,
Yeah.
we had a conversation. I remember talking your ear off for like an hour. I was pretty drunk.
Yeah, that was a good location. Food too, no sausage, yeah.
No, I think you made a good call, man. Like that.
That's where you threw it up in the air. You go.
Oh no, yeah.
You're the So I remember having a conversation with you last year at the Christmas party.
My first meetup was November 30th.
Yeah.
And that's what I was actually really just gung-ho to buy something. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that goes, it just.
Oh,
like, it's
shoot,
not
it was.
the Wi-Fi thing.
Hey, Chris, you're leaking.
Cool. What was that? What? It was like.
I mean, it was almost already folded nicely for you.
Yeah. And then just like
Digressed.
It's just money. Money is not my most valuable asset.
I'll take it.
I think we'll take care of it for you.
You know, once you go home, you're gonna sort out that money. I can take that for you.
Hey, it's someone's phone right here.
Oh, that's mine.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
It goes in the front corner. And am I still recording?